All right.
What's good? Thanks for
How are
coming
you?
in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Welcome.
To the Make Estate.
All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 9 of Loading with Will and Finn. Season 2 has kicked off, and we have a special guest in town, the first Michigan guest. This is BAUTISTA, everybody.
Hello. It's an honor to be here.
All right, first and foremost, just get it out of the way. Like, the nickname Toe, how'd you get it?
So it's a pretty lame story, but essentially, so I grew up in Michigan, and my parents were kind of wannabe Red Wings fans. They were good, but they didn't care enough. But they felt like they needed to care because they were good. And so my grandma's Polish, and they had a defender named Tomas Holmstrom, and so they would always call me Tomas as a kid. And then
Is your name Thomas?
Yeah, my name's Thomas.
Okay,
Thomas.
Yeah. But so then eventually it just got shortened to Toe, and then I decided to spell it T-O-E, not T-O, or else I'd, be walking around like Two, which would be a really tough. Not like Toe's anything better, but it's definitely better than Toe, or excuse me, than Two. So Toe was born, and ever since then I've been trying to avoid it, but it's tough.
Do people at work call you Toe?
See, that's the only place where people call me Thomas.
Because I had no idea your name was Thomas. Not gonna lie, dude. I've only ever called you Toe. I was introduced
my boy
you
Toe.
as Toe.
Well, see, Toe's very easy, rolls off the tongue. Like Thomas, a bit of a mouthful. But at work, my boss calls me Tom. Especially when we were in the office, last summer, they called me Thomas, and I just would not respond.
Yeah.
And they're like Thomas. I'm like, the fuck is this?
Do they know people call you Toe?
So I told
Or is that is that an altered life?
Well, I tried to tell my interns, I was like, yo, you guys you can call me Thomas, but I prefer Toe. And they thought I was just playing a joke at the time. I was like, seriously. Then,
Dude, I'll be honest, with freshman year, when I first heard, yo, apparently Thomas likes to be called Toe, I was like,
who the fuck
bullshit,
is this?
Bro. No way.
Well, that's the thing. I always say, nothing gives me more anxiety than introductions, because whenever I introduce myself to new people and I call them, yo, my name's Toe, they're just like, Joe? When I was play basketball, we'd go to away games, right? And on the roster card, they would have Toe BAUTISTA, but all these away people were like, "This got to be a typo." So I would run out there hype, ready to go. They're starting at point guard, Joe BAUTISTA. I'm like, no, not again.
You got all your handshakes down, the whole line, feeling swaggy, and then they fuck your name.
Exactly. I'm like, all right, this is gonna be a bad game.
Oh man.
Are your parents Red Wings fans at all these days?
I mean, again, they want to be. The Red Wings suck right now, so they don't care that
The only
much.
team worse than the Red Wings is the Kings. Even though we beat them 5-2 when I went earlier this year.
That's the sad thing about being a Detroit sports fan is, since I've been alive, the greatest joy has been the Red Wings.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the majority of Detroit sports fans don't really care about the Red Wings. So it's almost
really?
I feel that.
I didn't know that. See, from the outside looking in, I always assumed the Detroit sports fans, Red Wings probably are red-blooded,
You would, definitely, there's definitely a section of Detroit people who play hockey, but I think that's the thing of, if you are really into hockey, you probably played hockey, or your parents played hockey, or they care about hockey. If your parents by and large didn't play hockey, you're not that invested. And so for me, in a bunch of Michigan people, is the Tigers were a fun team, because when you're growing up, you love to play baseball. The
they were
Lions,
pretty good there too when we were young.
They were. They had some. Made it to the World Series twice. Got smoked both times, but they've had some unbelievable teams the past 10 years and just couldn't get it done. But
among other teams,
yeah,
that's weird,
exactly. Keep it coming.
True.
You can go down the line.
It's weird because I feel like LA's got actually a pretty good Kings fan base.
I would say
you guys grew up
wholheartedly the Kings are my number one. team.
Over the Dodgers.
Kings and Dodgers are my number one team.
See, that's what I have to ask though. Is I feel like if you're in a big sports market, not that Detroit is, but you're in a sports market with 4 different teams, right? If you have football, basketball, and baseball all in that market, you're going to be very hard pressed to find people who their number one go-to team is hockey.
Yeah, that's true.
So and I think that's part of it is, football's a sexier sport than hockey. Basketball is too.
Totally.
Baseball to a certain
They also
extent.
do a terrible job of marketing their sport.
They
in
do.
General.
It's really bad, especially because hockey.
Especially
games
now,
are so
dude.
fun to
RIP
go to.
Doc Emmerich, man. Doc Emmerich just retired. He's the main reason I listened to hockey for so many years.
Is that an announcer?
Doc Emmerich is the GOAT in hockey announcing. It was literally Bob Miller for the Kings and Doc Emmerich for NBC, dude. Every Stanley Cup.
One of the big ones.
He's the voice of every Stanley Cup. Anyway. Toe is out here in California for the first time. Actually, no, not the first time, right? Weren't you here back in the day?
I've been here for a weekend. Went to the Rose Bowl when I was a kid, but nothing.
That must have been so sick.
I was also 10 years old.
Did you go to Saddle Ranch?
Dude, I ran that place. I ever go back there, like, I recognize you.
Yeah, they're like,
It's just
that's
Toe
that kid.
corner
They're
booth,
like,
corner
you know, they're
booth.
like, hit the walkie-talkies, like, tequila shots, let's go.
All right, for those who don't know what Saddle Ranch is, it's like a TikTok bar that they live
It's
really
the
close to
Mecca.
on West Hollywood. Oh man. So
yeah, but so like I kind of like I went to San Francisco for like a week last year, 2 summers ago. Went to Outside Lands, did that whole
Absolutely.
thing, and like that was kind of my first. Not to say I'm like an adult, but like more grown up version of visiting a city, and like for whatever reason, like I just had a special attachment to it. Like whether it's like the people, I think that had a big thing to do with it, but also part of it's like it's a new experience in a cool state, and I think that's just. It's a pretty enticing thing for
we
me.
also can't talk about that. I totally forgot about this, so I'm so glad you brought it up. How we got to Outside Lands and our setup was hilarious, right?
God.
So my godmother that I work for every now and then on interior design stuff also runs like a side cookie business hustle, and she's a vendor at Outside Lands, and we got this deal, me, Toe, and one other kid who's a year younger than us named Mike York, who's an awesome dude as
Shout
well.
out York.
Shout out to Mike. We all got this deal where we had to work like 2 or 3 hours a day, and we'd get free passes for the whole weekend. So basically, all we had to do was
That
miss.
is such a fact.
We
That was
basically just missed the pregame, and it wasn't even that much that
Could
we were
you
missing.
choose what hours you wanted to work?
Yeah, we worked the morning hours.
Yeah.
So like we
Oh,
worked.
so that's like when all
Yeah,
the
when
terrible
we-
artists
exactly,
are on.
yeah.
Yeah, we basically
that's
worked-
so sick.
Well, we were scheduled to work from 9 to noon, but the first day we showed up like an hour late. The second day we
Did
showed
you leave
up.
an hour
We showed
late?
up on
Nah.
time, but left an hour early. And then the third day, Mike didn't even show
Yeah.
up because he had to go to like a family thing. So we kind of schemed, but that was awesome.
Dude, I mean,
Sounds
the
awesome.
fact that like you kind of fell into our lap too, where like I mean, I was like Outside Land's probably like 400, and like you know when you're in college, you're like I'd rather not eat that.
Well,
than,
on top of
Yeah.
trying to convince Toe to fly out from, it was Nashville at the time, Nashville to San Francisco. That's a hefty flight.
yeah,
500 bones right there. I'm like, dude, like, I can get, like, and I even sent a text, like, hey, if anybody can make it out, I can get you a free pass if you're willing to work, like, a couple hours a day. Easy
dude,
money.
and like it was fun,
That's
just
awesome.
like kind of not only enjoying the festival, going to Outside Lands, obviously, like that's why you go there for, but it's cool, kind of seeing that other side too
Dude,
as a worker,
yeah.
where you're like,
And everybody was
serving-
super chill.
You're like, you know, you're serving up people who want coffee, who are
Yeah.
just like so excited about what's going on.
That's
That,
cool.
like, you
Right.
get like that experience.
Well, and,
That's
like,
really
we were
neat
working at,
travel.
like, a place that served cookies and coffee, and everybody was coming in, like, wanting coffee, and we're just, like trying to get their motor running for
Yeah.
the whole day, right?
Cool.
Just like, let me get a strong ass coffee and get fucking going.
Let's get this thing started.
Yeah, so
I'm curious though, real quick. What's your impression between San Francisco and LA after spending just a little bit of time there?
I mean, I feel like LA definitely is more laid back.
Okay.
Like SF is, I mean, I love SF. I want to spend some time there definitely, like since I'm out here. But
Mhm.
I feel like LA, whether it's the beach, the better weather, I almost feel like there's more to do out here. And
Yeah.
I think like that almost breeds a different type of person. Whereas like, if you want to be in SF, like obviously there's driven people who want to get shit done. And like really like kind of glow up for themselves. Whereas
Yeah.
LA, I feel like it's more people going with the flow, want to go to the beach, want to go hike. Like not that that's not available in SF, but I feel like it's kind of more
More people
ingrained.
that want to
It's
go
more
spend
ingrained
time
in the
doing
culture
that.
here, you know. And like I think that almost speaks to the people out here. And I mean, for whatever reason, like I was like talking to you earlier too. Like when I first wanted to move out here, like so I'm from Nashville. No one comes to California from like where I live. So like I tell
except
my
Miley Cyrus.
yeah, my girl.
Thank you so much, Nashville.
Exactly.
That one's so sick.
I love you. But like it was very interesting, like hearing their perspectives about it. Not like considering they've never been out here,
Yeah.
and hearing how like their own intuition like led them to say like, oh, like yeah, LA's cool, but it's expensive. It's
I
like,
could never live there.
exactly.
It's
It's
so
too
liberal.
like
It's
too
so
liberal,
this,
or whatever.
that.
I'm like, you've never been here, you
Yeah.
know, and like not that I've been
How
here
could you
for
be so sure of it?
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, how are you that demonstrative in your opinion, where you've stuck in the South your entire life, that you're going to tell me like?
I went to Denver once, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
well,
It's like,
well,
come on
that's
now,
not-
you haven't seen the
that's
Pacific
not-
Ocean.
yeah.
But like at the same time, like I think like, for me, it's been just a very cool experience. Like not only like hanging out with my friends, but like you know, hanging out with other people who are around here, like very well-grounded kids who understand the perception of LA, but also like love LA because it's LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that just like speaks to how cool of a place this is too.
It's
Absolutely,
really
man.
interesting hearing that from your perspective because Will and I will never get to understand what it's like to come here. You know what I mean? Like when you're born into this, it's not possible to like remove yourself from that.
What I think is
understanding.
also like a very unique thing though is like just talking to Will and like you. It seems like people who are from LA don't really like necessarily want to leave, and I don't think it's because they're looking for new things. It's like this place is awesome.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and there's no like I still have like you guys grew up here, but you're still new to so much cool
Absolutely,
around
bro.
here. Where it's
Absolutely.
like it's not like you're just wasting your time hanging out with your high school buddies, like going through the same like routine or whatever. Like you can still live out here, growing up here, and still kind of like move on to the next phase of your life.
There's so much creation going on in this city too, in the sense that like trends start here.
Yeah.
And like honestly, a lot of the entertainment and media and I guess you could say like social fabric of the rest of the world has begun to be manufactured here.
Right.
Obviously there's really ingrained cultures in other countries, but you travel Europe, the movies they're watching, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
their understanding of
Dude, the
all of
crazy part
America is manufactured
No, I mean,
in Los Angeles. Like
That ultimately ties back to the reason why we started this podcast in the first place is because you and I were encountering so many creative, cool people that are obviously going places, and we wanted to be able to,
tap into that
tap into it and get in front of them before they're too big to talk to guys at my house.
Totally,
right? That's where we are
in the Brit.
So like we have, for season 2, we have a slate of awesome like. We got a cannabis entrepreneur. We got someone who's about to be in entertainment and talent management. We got a guy who cut my hair about 2 weeks ago at his barbershop who sponsors Bryce Harper.
But like that's what I also think, like, to go back to that SFLA, like if you want to be an SF, like by and large you're either going to tech or something that deals with tech. Finance you're doing with like startups, whatever. Like LA I feel like is a cool area where you can explore a lot of different industries. Like obviously LA is the entertainment capital of the world. No one's gonna deny that, but like there are so many, like none of us are in entertainment. Like
plenty of healthy, very healthy
exactly.
industries.
And I feel like for whatever reason, LA's got this perception where it's like it's entertainment or it's like a very cutthroat environment where it's like almost the exact opposite. Where it's like if you want to do like what you were saying, cannabis, you've got people who are also doing video production, tech, consulting, whatever have you. Like it's a very cool like grooming ground for that.
Yeah.
Also, even going out here, it's like I feel like nightlife has changed so much in LA, and it will continue to do so. You know what I mean? Like. You get these cool concept bars that just take off here, where it's like all of a sudden you walk through a refrigerator and you're in like some 70s place, you know what I mean? And then I go to Birmingham, Alabama, and you start to see stuff like that pop up like 5 years later on the other side of the country.
Well, then I feel like
trendsetters.
But it's also cool. Is like it's not just creative in the entertainment sense; it's creative in the entrepreneurial sense. It's creative in the tech space. It's cool. Like it's very innovative in a lot of different fields too, which I think makes it. Seem like it's got a lot to offer more so than just like it's nice here.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like I can go to the beach. Like
so,
it's not just.
I kind of want to. I mean, like I'm gonna tie this back. I had a question leading into it, but you kind of just answered it over the past 30 seconds or so, maybe longer. But I was super stoked because I was here with obviously my high school buddies for a really long time, and hadn't seen any Michigan friends for 5 or 6 months really before Toe and our friend Joe, who will be coming on in a couple weeks. Decided to move out here for the month of October, and like I remember that FaceTime.
Yeah,
dude, that was just
that pushed me off the edge.
I was like, no way. I've been trying to convince friends to move out here for a really long time, and Joe has obviously wanted to be involved in entertainment, and he had his plans set to come out here. It's just things kind of took a while, but on the other end, it just seemed like everybody was holding back on that hesitancy that you were just talking about. Like their impressions of LA haven't necessarily been formed by people who live out there and enjoy it. And it's for some people seem pretty hard-headed against it in terms of like cost of living, in terms of like how liberal it is if they're from a conservative state down in the Midwest. But ultimately, we're going to be paying the same rent as people that are some of our peers that are living in Chicago or New York.
I mean, I feel like also, what you said is exactly true too. But I feel like an aspect of it is like even dealing with COVID is. People almost like kind of miss like that balance in their life or just like something concrete where like they have a stable like living situation. They have a stable job. They have like things that they just like are comfortable with and like doing. And COVID obviously has screwed that all up for X amount of months. And I feel like at a certain point you just kind of have to get over it and be like, all right, obviously we all want to get back to like pre-COVID where we can just go out, fuck around, do whatever we want. But at a certain point you got to deal with the circumstance at hand. And like, it got to the point where I would be living at home and I was like,
in Georgia, right?
Yeah, I'm in Georgia right now. And it got to the point where I was living there. I'm like, I was either just waiting for an opportunity to present itself, but especially in COVID, like you kind of just have to go out and
that's
just
not
like
happening.
exactly, like,
No,
and it's
dude,
not going to happen
Trust
for
me, I
another
was
6
waiting
months.
for 6 months for an opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, you're just like you're constantly waiting, and like if you have the means to go out and explore and do something different, like I feel like this is as good as opportunity as ever, and I feel like
Totally.
maybe that's not the status quo of especially how things are, but it's also something that, you know, as recent graduates from college, as young professionals, even people who are still in college are trying to figure out their way. It's like figure out, like for me too, moving to LA is like so I was supposed to like be in North Carolina, for example.
Right. Explain, kind of break down the job situation and why you were like your mindset behind moving.
Yeah.
out
So
here.
this all came about because I've been working a full-time job at IBM, which their biggest office is in North Carolina, which I was supposed to be at, and we're remote, just like pretty much every company in the world is right now, for 6 months to a year. So I figured I might as well take this opportunity to go. And like back to what I was saying is like, it gives you this time to like try out a city, right? So I think LA is a really cool place. I've always wanted to live here, but being here for a month, it lets me just like, since I'm remote, I can just try it out. If I don't like it,
Low
so
risk.
what? So
Yeah,
what? I go
super
home
low
and then like
risk.
I know for a fact, boom, I don't like LA. Let's move on. Or like, okay, I want to go to Chicago. Go to Chicago. I love it. I want to be here. And I think that breeds a very cool opportunity where you can almost try out a lot of different cities that like, oh, maybe I do well here. Maybe like this is there's a lot of cool things to do here. And I just decided to come to LA, and I absolutely loved it. So
That's great. I think that's a very positive way to look at
bro.
things, especially if it's financially feasible. It's like, why not use this as your test or pancake period?
Yeah, but
like
it's also like
worst case scenario, you spend a month in a place.
exactly in a cool place that you never would have got the opportunity
Yeah.
to. And I think that's what kind of drove a lot of it too. And then the fact that
Do you have any other buddies doing stuff like that, or?
not, I mean, like
Yeah, I feel like this is a very unique perspective that I appreciate.
yeah.
a lot.
Well,
like,
I mean, like most of my high school friends have stayed like in the South. Like they went to school in SEC. It's just kind of it's where their people are more or less. It's where their jobs are. It's where their network is.
Very comfortable.
Going to a school like Michigan has allowed me to broaden that, right? You know, not even like in a Michigan sense, and it's in a Chicago sense, SF, LA. So it's given me that almost not like a pedestal by any means, but it's given me the opportunity to not only go to a new city, but be able to be kind of plugged into a city where I'm not going to just go to LA and just
wander
sit
around
there and be like, okay, like let's just. I hope
Will
LA
you be my
doesn't-
friend?
Yeah,
Like-
exactly. And like, and I think that's what kind of almost discourages people from taking that move is
what if it fails?
exactly. It's like you're uncomfortable with kind of doing things by yourself, and the fact that I do have friends out here has definitely made that kind of the learning curve a lot easier. Like I've come in here and you guys have been inviting me here, doing whatever. Like, oh, we're doing this. You want to come? If I don't want to come, so be it. But it's also like it allows me to meet new people that
the opportunities are there. Yeah, to start something.
Man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I think to a greater scale, like I don't know why LA gets the shit that it does.
Dude,
like,
for real.
I mean, the traffic sucks. It's not even bad right now. I
mean,
completely understand, but it's
to
like
be
those
fair,
are
like
very,
this is COVID traffic, no school traffic.
yeah,
It's a little different.
It's definitely different, but
It's a lot better than it's.
Oh,
I
I'm
also
saying
feel
it's
like-
a way,
I
way
feel
nicer
like
now.
if you're bugging out about the traffic, like those are very first world problems. Like you can have a lot, you
Yeah.
can have a lot of things worse to complain about a city
That's
than like
facts,
I
bro.
have to wait 5
The
minutes.
food's too good, so it's really expensive, and the traffic's terrible.
Oh my
Like,
god, the weather's perfect, and I pay too much in taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, not to like gas up LA too much, but it's like
Yeah.
just like it's a very like just normal city.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and honestly, it's like, well, it's expensive because people want to be here. You know what I mean? Like, if people
But it's
didn't want
also
to be here,
like,
it'd be less
if you're
expensive.
in New
like,
York, you're in Chicago, like you're spending money regardless. And the thing is, like,
totally.
I was watching something earlier, like, yeah, as a 22-year-old, like you want to save money or whatever, but like, are we really saving that much money just like sitting at home? Like, if I've got the chance to go out and do something cool for a month,
Yeah.
might as well do it. Worst case scenario, I go live a month, or, go back home and I save up for another 2 months.
Also, fingers crossed, we're making less money than we're going to be making
Exactly,
every other
yeah,
year
I
from
mean-
now. Maybe it will not work like that, but, fingers crossed, ideally it would. I think you might as well enjoy it and take advantage of being young, not tied down, and, like, explore your options.
Exactly.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. Good for you, dude.
I'm glad you came
It's a big
out, and I
send.
hope you're enjoying it.
Love it.
We're gonna do a little circle back on Toe's little lifeline here. He referred to it
Talk
earlier.
about Toe.
Yeah, let's talk about Toe. This is Toe's interview. All right, so you're from Grosse Pointe, right? Grew up there.
Where the hell's Grosse Pointe, Michigan? I got a question.
It's the heartland of America. Let me tell you.
Grosse Pointe, Michigan. That's like a somewhat northern suburb of Detroit, right?
Yeah, no, it's like right on the water, so it's like northeastern of Detroit.
It's the nice part of town. Okay,
I mean,
and Lou Theros is the mayor of that town.
Who's Lou Theros?
Our boy's dad.
Oh, really?
Shout out
He's the
to
man.
John. Okay.
Oh,
That's crazy.
But yeah, so my dad grew up in Detroit. My mom's Wisconsin, very Midwestern family.
Nice.
All my family still lives there by and large. So I lived in Grosse Pointe, Michigan for 8 years, and I absolutely loved it. Loved Michigan.
What was it like growing up in Michigan versus down in Nashville, where you eventually moved?
I mean, the biggest thing for me is just like the type of people, and it's like not in a bad way by any means, but I found like the Midwestern, like just like constituents or whatever, are just, they're not necessarily like more laid back, but like they're very just like blunt, and they'll just tell you how you feel. Even at like, not to say like I was an 8-year-old and like I could tell like okay, this guy doesn't give a fuck about me, but it was like but it almost gave you a very real sense of how the world worked at a young age. Like
not a whole lot of smoke and mirrors.
Exactly, they're not going to fly around.
There's pretty much no bullshit within like the automotive community whatsoever.
No,
that's how my grandpa was, dude. Just spit.
So it was like all
facts.
of Midwestern people like that, or is that more of a Michigan thing?
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think it, honestly, I do think it's kind of a Midwestern thing. Because like Chicago is kind of similar in that vibe. Like most Chicago kids are, again, like they're very easy to talk to, but it's also like they're not just gonna butter up to you and just like, oh, you like soccer? Well, I love soccer. You know, where it's just like I'm just gonna like help you out in the conversation here. Whereas like Nashville, well, I love Nashville. I think it's one of the coolest cities in America, but Southern people are much more just like tailored to what like they like, you know. So it's like
to keep the conversation going. And it'd just be like super.
Exactly.
Yes, dude.
It's like that Southern hospitality of just like.
God bless your heart. It's just like.
And like it got to a point where like in high school, I kind of wanted a different change of pace.
Yeah.
And like most Southern people are from the South, or they have like they're very just like they have a stable life in the South, and they're very comfortable there. They don't want to leave.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like having that Michigan experience, meeting this other people, I was always just yearning for almost a next step. In like my journey, whatever, not to sound like too cheesy or anything, but like I just like Nashville was awesome, but I wanted to move on, and some people don't. That's great for like they have, you know, they love being in the South. But
talk about that too, because Bama, you have so many fraternity brothers that said they would never leave Alabama.
Totally.
Right? So talk about that.
And you're like LA. Oh, it sounds cool to visit, but I'd never want to live there. And I get that. To be honest, I get it. It's not to curb my enthusiasm here a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
the South is cool. It's awesome. I loved a ton of things about the South.
No, but why is it that you think that they will never leave Alabama?
I don't want to speak on their behalf, but from my, from my experience there, it's because being Southern's an ideology.
Yeah, it's almost ingrained into who they are as a person. And
do you identify as a Westerner?
No.
No,
not really. I mean,
you're not even like a Californian. You're in a Los Angelino, and that's like loose. You know what I mean?
I'm not even really an Angelino.
That's what I'm saying. And like you're pretty loose on that.
Yeah,
that's my point. It's like maybe SoCal is kind of how you feel about yourself, but like any of that could be washed away at any moment. It's a very like transient like identity.
I agree.
Being Southern is
it's in like their fabric,
ingrained identity. You all dress the same.
Dude, that's
all of them wear the afros.
How are they all getting away with like the early Justin Bieber cut still
the
in
bowl
2020? Cut? No, but just like the swoosh. Like, how is that still fashionable in the South today?
Dude, I don't know. Good boys have it, and that's just enough for children to want it because they see like their dad's friends wearing it. I don't know, man.
God, man.
It's not a place. I guess we were talking about it earlier. LA is a place that changes so much. So you can't have a permanent identity to it. You know what I mean? Because it's constantly adapting. And to feel like you're from LA is to feel like you're kind of from the rest of the world. Because we have a lot of people here. It's one of the most diverse places ever. And then in the South, you get a lot less people moving in from other places in the United States even. So it's very easy for that to be like, this is ours. You know? Not a whole lot of people leave it. Not a whole lot of people come to it.
Yeah.
You got families that live forever in the South, and I think that's just a very unique thing. That being said, though, there's a lot of things that about the South that are exceptional. And
Dude, I mean, that's the thing too. Is like
barbecue.
Every
So
time I
good.
can go,
well, even like family is like
Yeah.
a really great thing there. You know what I mean? Like the way they like do that is something I appreciate. Friendliness, even like
Yeah.
sometimes it feels like it's bullshit,
It
but sometimes
it
it's
does
really
come off really
genuinely
fake
No,
nice.
it does.
because I feel like I can read fake people pretty well, and sometimes in the South, like when that's all you get, you're like, okay, at least half of these people have to be faking it.
I
right?
had
But also,
I had a
like-
realization about this. Just real quick, if I could throw it in. I was stuck in Alabama for Easter once, and my
stuck.
Yeah.
shit. Okay, so I'm in
God
Alabama.
forbid.
So I'm in
Shout out to whoever invited Finn to Easter dinner. You
So-
know,
so I'm-
this dick.
No, I'm getting there. Stop it, okay? So I'm in Alabama for Easter, and I was supposed to come home, but something happened. And one of my best friends, his girlfriend Mal, who's just the best. But they hadn't been dating for super long by this time, but I thought she was really great. I'm walking with my girlfriend, and we're walking, and I run into her parents, and her parents like, "What are your Easter plans?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't have any. I'm just gonna stick around here." And they're like, and I've literally maybe met them like for 6 minutes before, and they're like, "Oh no, you're coming to our house." And
Wow.
and I'm like, "Oh my god, that's so nice." And afterwards, Claire's like, "Are they serious?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, this. Like, I'm pretty sure they're serious. Like, I didn't want to like, because in LA, if someone makes that, you don't like follow up on it. You're like, maybe they were just trying to be nice." And they were so serious about it, texting me like, she made me an Easter basket. Like, it was the most genuinely like.
That's true.
thoughtful
There
thing.
are a lot of like faux invitations given out here.
Yeah.
I catch myself doing it all the time.
Exactly, like no one in LA would ever mean that
Like,
in a
bro, we
billion
should hang
years.
out sometime, and you're just like, oh man, that's just
But that
a
is
way
like-
of ending the
But
conversation.
like these people are just so good.
Exactly.
And they
I
love
mean,
it.
that's
It's
like a
just-
beautiful
it's
thing about the South is like there are a lot of people who just have a very pure heart who like
Yeah.
they're in the South and like they just enjoy kind of the subtleties and just like experience they get in their life. So when they get a new like person in town, like you're from LA, they're probably jumping at the bit like, oh, I'd love to just hear about that and just like let you enjoy just like good Southern hospitality and like that almost like it gets thrown around, like Halloween candy where it's just like, oh, like they're so nice, but they
also,
actually,
I think
like, very
there's something to be
genuine
said
about it.
for people who are like, live like a simple life and like, just enjoy like their surrounding and their lifestyle and don't want to change it. You know what I mean? Like they don't need the hustle and bustle to find fulfillment in life. Where they are and who they're with makes them happy, and that's respect to that.
Shout out to the Heislers, freaking best family in America.
Great Easter basket.
That's
Yeah,
really cool.
you guys
Really
are
cool
the
to have
sweetest people
family
ever.
on
Like
Easter.
seriously, they're the best.
All right.
Sounds a cool place.
All right, so moving on. Toe, for people who don't know him personally, it's the reason that we have the product placement over on the right. He's a very prolific basketball player. And that's, shout out to my cousin Maddie. She got that for me for Christmas this year.
Very steezy.
It's a dope sweater. But I wanted to ask Toe, first of all, how, like, what sports were you playing in Michigan versus what sports did you end up playing in Nashville? And, like, when did you decide that you were gonna play basketball and that was your sport?
Yeah, so like when I grew up in Michigan, like this was also when the Tigers were actually like pretty good. And like again, this going back to the Detroit sports thing, like baseball was a very like instrumental part of my growing up. Like little league games were some of like my most fond memories as a kid.
Totally. I lived for baseball.
Exactly. So like I love baseball. I was
what position were you?
I played shortstop and pitcher.
Ooh.
So like
those are big time spots.
I used to be like I used to
be in the action.
I used to be kind of nice at baseball. But so then I moved to Nashville, and what's weird about Nashville too was like when you move there, like so I have an April birthday, you have an April birthday, like
we're like our birthdays are a couple days apart.
So I was like pretty young for my grade. When you move to Nashville, like these kids are held back for sports, right? So
really.
Dude, when I
for
play
football or just
for
for
football, but like they love football and basketball more than anything. So like you get a kid who matures early, they're holding him back a little bit, so he can just dominate. So it got to the point where like I'm playing these baseball guys who are just beasts. Like
it's like in the Sandlot where it's like I am 12.
Yeah,
and he like hands a Corona. And
that's
it's
bench warmers, but
I mean same shit, but like. So it got to like 5th, 6th grade, and I was like, I mean, my dad coached high school basketball, so I was also like a big basketball player. And like so travel basketball, travel baseball both happened to be in the summer. And so I have an older brother too, and like they were trying to navigate. We would literally go from baseball tournaments to then basketball, and then go from baseball. My poor parents would have to navigate that with, my 2 other siblings.
I've been thinking about that, like, in more recent years. I'm like, dude, that is a labor of love.
Dude, and they're always on Saturdays, too. So,
and they're
like,
always in nowhere.
You're
they're
grinding.
nowhere.
Imagine you're grinding your dad. Like, he has 12 to 12. He's a doctor, so his hours are crazy. And on Saturdays, he's got to be driving 4 hours for a basketball tournament, another 4 hours
to
for
the freaking northwest corner of Tennessee where they have enough land to like do this.
Exactly.
You know,
we're playing on like a soccer field more or less, and like that's almost what happened. Is like my parents were making a big sacrifice traveling both of these, going to basketball tournaments, going to baseball tournaments, and it got to a point where they were like, look, if you guys love both baseball and basketball, we'll continue to do this, but you have to like I want to see you.
It'd be
more
so dope
and,
if you didn't and just
No, and that's like kind of what the conversation happened. And like I was pretty good at basketball. My twin was 2. My older brother was 2, and like basketball, like I said, my dad coached, so like we were always a basketball family. So kind of just gravitated towards that, and then just kind of. And like Nashville is, for whatever reason, kind of a slept-on like sports city. Like like there's a ton of good athletes who come out of Nashville.
Okay, so on the lower high school level,
yeah, all right.
Okay,
that's the follow-up question to talking about how you ended up picking basketball. But
yeah, so like I would like. I mean, I love basketball. I think it's more fun than baseball. Like even playing shortstop, like I would just. You'd kind of hope that action came to you, and at a certain point, you'd almost not hope that action came to you, where you're just like, you're out there, and like, please don't hit the ball.
The coaching strategy when kids are really little is like, if you can't hit and can't field, you're in the outfield.
Exactly.
Like, we hope the ball.
We're sticking you in left field,
we hope you don't see the ball this game.
And like, it was sad too, because like, I really enjoyed baseball, but like, I just had so much more fun like playing basketball. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna be a basketball player.
So you were talking about the scene in Nashville, and this is my follow-up question because it's a great transition to what Finn did a couple nights ago, which is sick. What are some of the star athletes you faced coming up on the basketball scene, and do you think Mookie Betts can dunk a basketball?
Funny enough, so Mookie played, for the second question, Mookie grew up in Nashville. He went to the high school probably 20 minutes away from me. So he actually played my high school in basketball, and I've played basketball against him.
What?
Just like not in like the high school level, but just like recreationally.
That's cool.
How
much older is he then?
So
he's 27.
Yeah. So I played just like again this like pickup, but like when I was in like this was probably when he was in like the minor leagues for the Red Sox, and I was like a sophomore in high school. He'd come. He
was only there for like 6 months.
Yeah, so he came back to Nashville and like
he nice with it.
Yeah, I mean like he's a bad man. He's a bad man. Like the funny thing about Mookie is like when growing up in Nashville, like he was the man.
Dude, he is the man.
Growing up. Okay, so you guys were early on this, like everyone.
Exactly. So that's the funny thing. Like you guys talk about, like obviously he's a Dodger now.
He
like,
just
Mookie's
joined the Mookie hype train like 6 months ago.
Like I've, not to flex here. I've known about Mookie for 6 years. But like Mookie was one of the best bowlers in Tennessee.
Dude, he's a state champion.
He's actually a professional bowler when he's not playing.
He's a dog.
Baseball.
Like is he in the PBA straight up?
Yes,
he could be.
Who do you think I are? Who do you think you are? I am.
Yeah, exactly. He's out there slinging. But like for basketball, like he was an all-state basketball player. Led his team to the state state tournament. So they dogged our high school. But like playing against him, like
so you knew about him when you were in middle school.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, so
it's kind of like wow, this guy kills it.
But like even growing up, like playing. So for us, like I went to like public school in Nashville. So when we were in like the highest classification, so we would play teams from Memphis, like all those public schools, teams from Nashville. So like we played like a guy named Darius Garland. He was like the number 4 pick last year. Plays for the Cavs. Like we played him. I played against college. He went to Vandy. But so I played against him probably like I used to be in the gym with him like a couple times a week in the summer.
Damn, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
And like he is a beast. Obviously, he's a pro now. But so like our high school actually beat him by 30.
Oh,
sorry,
he went to the
dude.
private school, the public school.
How much did you drop on his head?
Not any.
Toe just posterizing.
No. I wish I had the juice like that. But like even like a guy like Jalen Ramsey, corner for the Rams.
True.
He went to the same high school as Darius Garland.
I didn't know. That's cool.
So like there was a lot of talent. Like for us, like I mean I went to a very suburban high school out of Nashville, so it's a bunch of white guys going against like these teams from Memphis, Nashville, like who's got some bona fide studs, and like we would actually like kind of hold our own, which was almost like very validating as a basketball player too, because like when you're growing up in like that suburban environment, you're only playing like kind of the kids by and large. So it's like it's tough to know how good you are when you're not going up against do
Real
too
talent,
hard.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Did you pull up to AAU tournaments and
Push
stuff?
yourself
or-
to get
Yeah,
better.
so like we would play, like we went to Atlanta a couple of times, went to Indy, like Indiana has some unbelievable basketball.
Mhm.
Is that a real thing?
It is.
It
It's
is?
Hoosier basketball is a real
it's,
thing.
It's on. Yeah.
Really?
It's ingrained.
Because I watched the movie and I was like, this is dumb. It meant nothing to me. It's just like, I was just like,
What,
eh.
Hoop Dreams?
No,
Is that what it
Hoosiers.
is?
No, it's Hoosiers.
Oh, Hoosiers.
Yeah, I mean, but that's also like it's a basketball movie where it's like if you kind of have to like play basketball to like enjoy like the romantic like aspect about it, where it's like
Or,
oh, it's
like-
a game when he shot or whatever.
Or like when the town's just like demonizing the head coach of the high school
Yeah.
basketball team. That's a real thing.
but like that's what it
That's
is.
so weird
That's
to
what it is
me.
in
Like,
Tennessee
it's
with
just-
football.
that's
Like
crazy.
there's some cities where it's like their high school football team is their town.
Like your coach could have a bad season and be on the hot seat with like the town. That's
No, like
crazy.
the town will pull up to
No,
like
that's-
board meetings for the school to get them fired. Like that's how crazy it is.
That's just crazy.
But yeah, no, it's like it's a very, but like that's why like again in the South like football's kind of king. So and I could never really play. Like I have one
Exactly.
kidney, so I couldn't play football. So I just kind of gravitated.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I couldn't do contact sports, so I just kind of gravitated towards basketball and
Mm.
ended up like I grew up. I had 3 brothers, so like we would always play. Like always play. Like
That's nice. Yeah, you have a little like.
Like,
Yeah,
but
scrimmage
it was
in
like
You
your
almost
house.
got a starting five
but
right
it was
there.
like it was also the fact too where like and I almost think like that's kind of translated to like work or school too is like growing up like with a bunch of other boys who were very driven at basketball. It's like whenever they were practicing, I was like, all right, they're getting better than me. Like,
Yeah,
I needed,
yeah,
like it was like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
what am
yeah.
I doing? So I would go practice, and
Right.
then like if they were like taking a nap, I'd be like, oh, let me get some shots up, and then they would like hear it. I'm like, okay, they got it. So it's like, it almost like kind of just like
Yeah.
drove us up to a greater like competition. Like my brothers are all really good at basketball too.
Who's the best at basketball / most athletic?
Damn.
I not that.
I
Well,
mean,
your brother did go to. He had a scholarship to go play football somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't.
So I mean, he was more a football player than a basketball
Right.
player. Not to toot my own horn, I think I was kind of
Dude, Toe's pretty nasty, bro.
I was-
I was gonna say.
I was
I haven't seen
Pretty
much,
good?
many better basketball players than my own two
I was
eyes.
like I was
Damn.
just like more of like
Word.
I had just a better feel.
I mean,
for
he's also
basketball.
the vice president of the club basketball team. We're gonna get there.
salute
Um,
Club Hoops, baby.
Shout out to Club Hoops. Dude, we should have you brought your jersey.
Oh
Shit.
man.
Did
But
you
the
ever
reason
think
I-
about playing in college?
Yeah, so like my senior year in high school, like that's all I wanted to do was play
Mhm.
basketball. And I was lucky enough I got recruited not by like any like big time
Who
like,
recruited you?
so like Wash U in St. Louis.
Yeah.
I like
It's a great school.
took a visit there, and like that was part of it when I like got to my senior year is like I'm a 6'2" white kid. Basketball is not my future. So I kind of realized like if I'm gonna go play basketball, I want to go and like get a good education somewhere. So I started looking like Emory, Wash U. I talked to like the Brown coach a couple times, but like it just didn't go through. But like I was set on going to Wash U,
Mm-hmm.
and then like I had like some other just like D2 offers kind of in the southeast, but like those never.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't really
Weren't
want to.
attractive
Yeah,
enough,
exactly. I mean, like, I knew I didn't want to play basketball for like I didn't want to make my 4 years of college be centered around basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is a question that I wanted to ask you, and this is a great time because you're bringing it up. So we have a lot of friends, you included, who literally had like offers to go play sports. Like Chase, my roommate Chase, freshman year, could have gone and played lacrosse at Tufts. Decides to go to Michigan instead. Kind of like talk about like the thought process of like actually deciding to move on from like your actual athletic, competitive athletic career for maybe potentially bigger and better things.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely, and like I think part of what makes that like in hindsight, I think it's an easy decision, but part of it like in high school is like my high school experience and a lot of good high school athletes who happen to have like scholarship offers or who want to move on to the next level, like all they've really known is that sport. It's like, yeah, you have school, but afterwards you're either working out or you're playing your sport.
Yeah.
In the summer, you're not like really, boozing or having a good time, whatever. Like you're focused on playing your sport. So
Yeah.
it's like when you try to make that decision of where you're going to go to college, all that really factors in your brain is like, okay, I just want to do what I love. Right.
Right.
And I think at a certain point, at least for me, I mean, I can't speak on like Chase or any about like
Mhm.
other people who've made a similar
Lucas
decision.
as well.
Yeah, Lucas, who made a similar decision to me is like, it's almost like what matters more, for your like personal growth. And like
Yeah.
for me, like I love basketball again. Like I wanted to keep playing it, but it got to a point where I realized I wanted to do something. Like I want to be more than a basketball player, and like that's a cheesy thing to say
Mhm.
because like I wasn't even like that good where I could like really choose my future.
Right.
But it was
Yeah.
also like all right, like, what do you want to do with your life?
Right.
And like that's kind of a tough pill to swallow as an 18-year-old, especially
Yeah,
when you love a sport.
Yeah, and you've been balling, and you're like, dude, I should be
Exactly,
getting looks.
you know, and like it's a very validating thing when other people recognize that talent
Yeah.
and like want to reach out to you and say like,
Right.
okay, come play for me, I'll give you blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And like the funny thing is especially about Michigan is because like my main decision was between like WashU or another small school or going to Michigan, and like my dad went to Michigan, but I like since I moved to the South, I hate cold weather. I can't stand it. Both my visits to Michigan, it's like classic 40 degrees raining.
Yeah.
Like I just
Oh,
can't
that's
Shitty.
brutal.
can't stand this school. And then it just like it got to the point where I was like I kind of like wanted to take a better look at Michigan. I'm like, okay, their sports are great, which was like a big thing for me as a sports fan. Their
Yeah.
academics obviously speak for themselves. It's a very cool city. You know, like why not try to just like go like, and I always figured like worst case scenario I just like play IM or I can just like it's not like basketball's ever going to leave for me,
Right.
whereas a good school can.
Yeah.
You know, like if you lose that opportunity, it's not coming back to you.
Yeah.
So I realized like worst case scenario I can just like fuck around and play hoops. And then ended up going to Michigan and then I joined the club team, which gave me kind of the best of both worlds, where I can play hoops at a competitive level, but then also like go to a school like Michigan where I can still have a social life, enjoy, meet new people, have a good education.
I mean, that's a tough understanding of things as an 18-year-old, though. Because, like, especially passion-driven, like, and to get the recognition that you finally feel like you deserve, it's really tough to walk
It's
away
crazy
from
too, because
any of that.
we know people that like chase that dream of like moving on to potentially the pros, and went to a small school and didn't necessarily enjoy it, and maybe have regrets in like the same way that you have that you thought it was an easy decision. Some people that we know may have regrets in hindsight of making the decision to pursue their sport at a small school versus going to a bigger school.
I think the biggest like difference you have to like make in your head is like obviously like very little of us like are going pro, regardless or like so it's not even like
it's a wonderful childhood dream.
Exactly, and it's like, but it's also when you're in high school, you kind of realize that it's like your career is not going to basketball, going to baseball, going to whatever have you, but like you almost like you never want to quit doing something you love, especially at an age where it's so ripe and like you want to just like keep cultivating that love and keep doing it. But to a certain degree, it's like, how much more am I going to milk out of this? And like that's kind of what got to the point. I got into Michigan and I just like, you know what? Yeah, basketball is like a big part of my life, but like also it's like,
what was your good vision to Michigan like?
How do you mean?
Like, you said you went in the rain and it just sucked.
Oh, well, it's
Did
like...
you get to see Michigan on like a really fun party day? Like, and you're like, I get to play this.
I mean, I went when I was like 10 years old, had some awesome experiences, but like...
You knew there was like a fun element
to
it?
People from there grow up going to games
The funny thing about that though is like, I knew Michigan, like football was fun. That's all I knew. I went to... So once I had no idea what the social scene was like. So I was a little nervous about, especially because like growing up in the South, all my friends are going to like Tennessee, Bama, Ole Miss. Like, you're going to those schools, you're there, like you're having a good time.
You're having a good time.
You're not fucking around, like people. Like for me, going to Michigan, I didn't know anybody. I knew like my roommate and like another kid. So I went to orientation, and I was just like, I'm not like any of these kids. Like, no disrespect to them, but they were just like, I want to study. I'm here to get a good education. But like Michigan's a big school, and so I just saw that.
I just don't want to just be a drone in classes.
And like it's funny. I saw that. I went home to Nashville, and I literally told all my friends, I'm like, I'm gonna hate it here. I literally told them I was like, I'm transferring out of here. Like I don't know why I went here. Even like the first like 2 weeks, or not 2 weeks, but like first day or two, I went to like some parties, and I was like, this shit's just not for me. I was like, I don't know. Like I don't know. I was so used to that Southern culture where I just I just almost thought it was like too nerdy, and then I kind of just got introduced to different people, and then you're like,
found the fun crowd.
This is actually
my experience was wholly different, dude. Wholly different. Like I just remember like being driven down for some reason our hotel, like the way that my dad drove to Fletch where I live, like a small shitty dorm for people who don't go to Michigan. You drive right down Hill Street, right, and on the left it's Welcome Week, and there's darties going on at the pit, and at 10-12, and down the line for basically a half mile, you have darties on the front lawn, and I'm just like, this is sick.
I gotta get into that.
Like, at least I know where to circle back. And luckily there are a couple Loyola dudes, Oliver and Joe, shout out to them, that hooked us up. So that was awesome.
Yeah, that's a big jump, dude. I remember that. Like, going to college and showing up and being like, well,
Dude.
I'm on my own. I'm
And
solo for the first time.
No,
like,
it's tough, dude. Like, and not to, like, kind of down, like, it is, like, I almost, like, not, like, lament some of my friends, but, like, I wish more people branch out and do that stuff, but, like, when you think back on how you felt for, like, those first couple of days, like, it's almost like your entire life, you're going to high school with the same, middle school with the same kids, you're playing sports with the same kids, like, that is so much ingrained into your daily routine that you almost forget what it's like to be on your own.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
Couple with that with going to a new school, couple with that with going to college where, you know, as a high schooler, you're like, okay, this is kind of like this, you know, you're
I
almost
go
like,
from period 1 to period 2 to period 3, and then they
Yeah,
spit me
exactly.
out. I go home, my mom makes me dinner, I do some
Right.
homework, and I redo the thing.
Dude, the craziest notion was like, wait, I'm only in class for like 3 hours a day. Like, what do I do for the rest of the day? You know what I mean? Like the first time you go through a schedule, you're like, bro, I'm done at noon.
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna do?
Dude,
all
and then
day?
it's funny how like you fast forward that like almost just like even a couple months semester, and you're just like, I could die for some free time.
yeah.
Oh
You're like,
my
then
God,
the
you're
midterms
like,
come around, you're like, dude.
I just want to go
Yeah,
home.
just oppressive.
Yeah, first time you have like mom's cooking after college too.
Oh my
eating the
God.
dining
You
halls,
just
especially,
melt.
especially the shitty dining halls of Bama. Woo.
It was so bad. I'm glad you said that. It's
Huh?
terrible.
So the thing that was crazy for me was I obviously applied to Michigan and went, but for me like my number one MO was to just try something completely new. Like ultimately my decision was down to Indiana and Michigan, and I got into Michigan off the deferred list very late, so ended up switching. But I think for me like I was so like open to new experiences and stuff, and hadn't even visited Michigan in person at all. Actually, yeah, I did. Like in my sophomore year, I was there for one day, but like the whole experience was so overwhelming, and just getting to select my roommates on Facebook too. So I kind of felt somewhat of a familiarity with having talked to these dudes for a couple months, and we were just ready to go for it. And
dude, isn't it crazy how that small of a decision can change your life?
Yeah.
Though.
And the crazy part was
just like the people like. Are you in LA right now if you don't choose to go to Michigan? Probably not. Are you really going to risk it if you don't have friends that are already there and like you have some guys you respect and like, I don't know, I just think about the way
oh,
life
you're
is
talking
played
to Tell
out.
about that.
Yeah, not you. I mean, you're from
You looked at me. I was like, what?
I can with 100% certainty, hell no.
Yeah, exactly. And
No
it's just
chance.
like, it's weird thinking that like, I mean, it is really such a formative period of college, and I've got a little cousin who's a freshman right now. I was just calling me on the phone
At
the other day.
TCU?
Yeah, at TCU.
Yeah.
He's phoned me in on all his like college shenanigans and just like being a
Dude.
freshman that everyone knows and remembers.
It'd be
very
so
fondly,
fun to
you know?
live vicariously through a college freshman again.
It's
just
funny,
like being able to FaceTime and be
It's
like,
funny
dude,
because I'm just
tell
like,
me what you did in the past
Somebody-
24 hours.
There's one question I heard where I'm curious what you guys would answer this, where it's like knowing what you know now and like if there was no social stigma, you move on with the rest of your life like you would if you graduate. How many years over would you do college, and if so, like which years would you do?
Okay, so here's my question: is it right out of college, or can I defer this year of college? Like,
No, it's like while you're in college, you gotta stay there.
I gotta stay there.
But like your friends are still there. Like it's not like you're the awkward fifth year or whatever. Like you're
Yeah.
in grad school, whatever. Like you're still living out that same year. You just like repeat these years.
Dude.
But then also like you are still getting older, like kind of mentally. Does that
I
make
was
sense?
ready to graduate. I was ready to graduate by the end of 4, just because I was like, I'd been through it all. I'd
Exactly,
gone
yeah.
to every bar. I'd explored every ounce of fun that this place had. That being said, I feel like when you're like 30, it'd be fun to like
Yeah.
get
It's
to
like
do a
hop
little
back, yeah.
throwback button to freshman year.
Mm.
By the way, if you're gonna relive one, freshman year is for sure
Seriously,
the year.
freshman year for you? Oh man, I would
Dude,
do junior
freshman
year
year is-
over again.
No, I mean going abroad, it's like you're
I mean,
different than
That's
college.
That's
that's
cool.
another
That
question
was
we have
special.
for you. But
It's a different kind of fun though. You know what I mean? Because it's like
I would redo that. all
freshman
over
year is
again.
like a new independent sort of fun. That's just like it'll
Well,
be
it's 'cause-
tough to like that's ever.
Yeah, I agree.
And
No, but dude, pledge term, fuck that.
Yeah, but it's also
it was
like
special in its own way. Though.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Like,
No,
I'm not
absolutely.
trying to do that
Like,
shit again.
insane that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like not that I would want to do that again, but also like to your point, like
Yeah.
just going into freshman year where you just have no idea what to expect and you're just taking everything like all at once and you're just like still in like the high school phase of like making that next step where
Yeah.
everything is awesome.
Totally,
And you're
dude.
just taking everything and like I would do like freshman and senior year over. Like I
Really?
think freshman year just to be
Yeah.
like because it was just like so awesome and
Yeah,
everything like so
new,
stimulating
yeah.
I love
and then
senior
and then
year,
senior
too.
year is just
Yeah.
because like like I thought senior year is just like very cool because you're on kind of your victory lap, but also
It's totally
like,
the victory lap,
I
dude.
see,
That's
like,
just the vibe
I
the whole
never
year.
got to experience Victory Lap Bama because, like, Bama's usually a fun place for the most part, but I feel like it's really towards the last 3 months where everyone's like, oh, this is the last of everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
something special. I mean,
well, we got COVID.
yeah,
And I never got to do that. Like, in the first couple weeks, I felt like of that really ramping up where everyone was like, kind of reverting to the freshman mentality, like we're going out as many times as we can during this week.
Well,
and
and
we're
like
just gonna
everybody's
make it-
second semester senior year schedule is
Yeah.
non-existent. Like
And your
had
teachers are somewhat
5
understanding
credits.
that you're like,
Yeah.
you know, you've gone through the hard parts. You're in
Yeah.
capstone level courses, which is way more about time management.
You
Than
call it
is-
capstone too?
Yeah.
So do we.
Yeah. So
I think our majors are really similar, by the way.
yeah, I mean, information sciences is what I did. So
Same. Yeah. Yeah. So, Toe, here's a question I've been waiting to ask you, right? How would you describe our SI squad in 30 seconds?
Is that
So, like, our-
tell
Okay.
them what
by
I
that,
said.
I mean, we basically, like, there is a group of people that we kind of all, I feel like, did you apply to business school too? A lot of people applied to business school or didn't.
Well,
Or were just like kind of
funny story
had no
about
fucking
that,
clue. Really? All right. We could
Can
hear
you
about
share it?
Yeah,
hear about him maybe not applying to
yeah.
business school.
So I went into Michigan, wanted to be in Ross, wanted to be this.
Everybody says they're gonna be in
exactly want to be
Ross.
this buttoned up Ross kid who's killing the business world. So freshman year during pledge term, to get into Ross, you have to like take a math class at Michigan. You can't just take like an AP. So I tested out of Calc 1. So I decided to take Calc 2 first semester at Michigan.
Oh, during pledge term.
During pledge term.
I
Oh,
remember
dude.
that.
So
Could you have chosen to do Calc 1?
I could have, but like
You should have done it.
I passed out of it,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
I
there's
got
no
you.
reason for me to retake Calc 1.
Yeah. These classes, Finn, are like so hard. Like for some reason,
well,
like
it's funny too. So Calc 2
Yeah.
is
I took through Calc 3 in Alabama and it sucked. Sucked.
there's just
yeah. So
they
like,
don't need to be that hard.
Calc 2 and Oreo 2 are the most failed classes at Michigan.
What's
so,
Oreo?
Orgo.
Chem?
Organic
Oh,
chemistry,
Orgo.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So Calc because it's like the weeder or Calc is like Calc 2 is the weeder engineering class.
Yeah.
So it's like if you don't do well in Calc 2, you're probably not going to be an engineer. So they just make it like ridiculously hard for just anybody who takes it. So to get into Ross, you need a C in this math class to apply to Ross, right? So I took it pledge term, which was
So
So
impossible.
pledge term's not fun, and you lose a
Right.
lot of time.
And the
So-
exams are on Mondays.
yeah, so our fun times were on Sunday nights, and our exams were on Mondays, right?
Mhm.
So there is like this gateway test you had to pass to like get through, like just to like show that you belonged in the class, and so this was the first 2 weeks of school. So as a college freshman, your first 2 weeks of school do not involve school, right?
Totally. It's
So-
orientation week and then socializing.
Exactly,
Like,
and then like you're going through rush. So I had to do this stupid test, and I was like, yeah, I'll pass it, whatever. And you need like a 6 out of 7 to pass. So it comes like the last day, and I've taken it like once, failed, but I was like, yeah, like I got a 5 out of 7. I needed one more.
Yeah.
You only get 2 chances a day, so I'm like, fuck it, I got 2 chances. First one, get like a 4 out of 7. I'm like, God damn it.
no.
So I'm down to my last one, and ended up failing it. And what I didn't realize was that if you fail that first test, it drops you a third of a letter grade.
Oh.
So I ended up getting a C in Calc 2, but because I failed that gateway,
Stop,
I got a C
dude.
minus.
So you took the whole course. You didn't even get to
Yeah.
withdraw or anything.
No,
like that.
so
That's
you need a C minus to apply to Ross, or you need a C, and I got a C minus, so I couldn't even apply to Ross.
That's such a bummer.
So at that point, I was like, okay, I'm not going to Ross. And then I ended up taking this coding class, and I thought it was the coolest shit ever.
Dope.
And then ended up getting in the School of Information, which is kind of essentially like information science with a little bit of coding.
It's like
Yeah.
enterprise level coding.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's a very poor man's computer science.
Yeah.
Totally.
But it's
That's
also
the best way to explain it.
In fact, like if someone ever asks, and it's like you kind of want to tell them it's computer science, just because like that's the closest they're gonna understand what it
exactly.
is.
Well,
But it's also so stolen valor.
Exactly.
Because those computer
Well, like,
science
Yeah, they're like,
students,
oh, so you
are
can code me this,
awesome.
and I'm like,
the funniest part about that is like,
I
so,
can tell you how you should, and I can tell you who you should ask.
Yeah.
Like
I can help you hire someone.
I can create some databases for you.
Yeah.
You need-
but like the funniest part about that is, so my job right now is like I'm a data scientist and like an architect, right? Which sounds super fancy, but like
Mhm.
the data science major at Michigan is literally one of the hardest majors. You have to go through linear algebra, and then you also have to have a minor in computer science
That's gnarly.
to get a data science major. And
So hard.
so I pretty much did the information science aspect and got a data
And
scientist.
then backdoor.
Yeah,
That's how
exactly.
you want to do it.
Well, I mean, that was great about our major is like are our hard skills not as in tune as a computer science? Absolutely not. Can you bullshit your way in an interview where it makes it seem like you know what you're talking about? Probably.
100%.
So like,
And do you have the intelligence to figure it out when it's time?
Hey,
shout out Stack
Probably.
Overflow.
this could tie in how
So
I
does
got my
Google.
job.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I literally got my job because of one lecture
Exactly.
freshman year. I mentioned we got this one-off lecture during our. Well, I don't even know the number, but
3:30.
Yeah, okay.
Shout out Matthew
3:30.
K.
Shout out Matthew K. One of our classes, one of our coding classes junior year. It was probably our coolest one. And they just had this one-off lecture about how you code AWS. And I was like, wow, that seems kind of like useful. I wonder why they just only did one lecture and moved on. Like they moved on to other shit that seemed way less important.
Yeah.
So I just kind of delved into it a little bit. And here I am, 2 years later, trying to get this job selling AWS cloud solutions for this company in Santa Monica, and I bring up Lambda functions, the one thing we learned about.
That's
And the guy's
fantastic.
like, "You've coded Lambda functions?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Start spewing a little bit. Started spewing a little bit. I'm like, "Yeah, for sure. Like I code a bunch."
But dude, like that's what.
And he's like,
Yeah, I've seen coding.
"Yeah," and he's like, "If you can tell me what those are, you get this job." And I was like,
Okay.
"Word."
Say
So
less.
yeah, so.
But like, I feel like with
It'd be like
but like, I mean, to a greater point too, like especially with our majors right now is like, yeah, we don't necessarily learn how to like build these awesome programs where you're gonna like take over the world and like do some really cool
Yeah.
shit with it. But like, what I think was cool about Michigan and our program, to what we were talking to, is like, you don't necessarily like you learn how to code, but you also learn how to like think in a coding mind and
Yes.
like. And I think that's almost like what was the greatest thing I took out of Michigan and took out of the program that we're in is like, I was given a very unique skill set that you can apply to a lot of different things. And I think the biggest problem for a lot of kids who are in that same opportunity is like, you don't know how to necessarily apply that. And
Yeah.
like, I think that's almost
Dude.
what college is like,
I agree.
you're learning this shit, but like, obviously your resume can speak for yourself, but if you don't know how to apply that and promote yourself, you're not going to do anything
Totally.
with it.
Like, real life
absolutely.
application is everything.
And that's what it is like,
you know?
and you realize, once you're in the workforce, is like, it's not like what I've been learning directly relates to my job. Like 90% of my job is very tailored to what my job is, but the other 10% comes from, okay, I was given this problem and I know how to like critically think off of that. And I think that was what's special about, even though our program didn't necessarily make us the greatest coders in the world, it taught us how to think in a more like technical mindset, which I think is a very unique thing.
To parlay what you're saying, like, you have computer science, which to me is like just a passionate pursuit of like computers. You know what I mean? Like, it's incredible what these kids can do. They build
Absolutely.
these badass programs. My major was like, you do 2 coding classes, you do some database administration, then some architecture classes, and then you round it out doing like a capstone project for like a client. The coolest thing about that is those 2 coding classes are the first 2. And those are kind of like the weed out ones for our majors, just because it's like a lot of kids are like, "I'll do this," and they don't know or want to know how to code. You know what I mean? Like, coding's really cool. I enjoyed it a ton. It teaches you to think logically in a way that you're not really ever trained to do.
But that's the thing is like,
you know,
a lot of people who say like, yeah, like I took this intro to coding class and it just like fucked me up, is like, it fucks everybody up. It's not
You
like
just didn't wanna-
not a single person goes into a coding class and it clicks naturally.
Yeah.
Not a you can be. I mean, Zuckerberg probably, but like a step below that, these kids don't just like come into, go from algebra 1, algebra 2 to then, okay, I can just build, a program.
the
right? Like,
syntax of it is weird. Coding is like
It is
the
weird.
syntax
It
of it
takes
is not
a
natural.
multiple-
It's unlike any language, but once you start pursuing it, you say, "Oh my god, this is my brain. This is the way it works." Like, I am training a computer to basically just step through things the way like basic human logic would, and that's a really cool.
Well, and
element.
it's like what's cool about coding problems too is like you have an end goal in mind. You're at the beginning. What fucks up most people is they don't know how to take that first step. You almost have to take it in the reverse and be like, okay,
Totally.
if I want to get to this end point, how do I then like what's my next step?
It's
off
like a
of that?
puzzle.
Where do I get to it is? And it's like it's how do you like maneuver these places to get to your end goal?
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, it's like coding. It's not like it's a very frustrating thing. It's not like,
So
like
frustrating.
Especially when you've got one like comma or like
Exactly.
one something in your program not run, and you're like, "No, this is right." Like, I
and then
know
you're staring
this
at
is
it for
right.
like an hour to like this is right,
And
and then
it's
you
just
figure out,
painful.
oh,
Yeah.
Only people who have programmed before understand like that frustration
Level
of
pain. You want to throw your computer
having a
against the
couple
wall.
errors and you're like, where the fuck are these areas?
Yeah. in this massive script,
Yeah.
dude. You're just like, dude, that
Throw
sucks.
it behind the context of like it getting late, and you're like, dude, I'm trying to go out tonight. Like, where the
Yeah.
fuck are these areas?
Yes, exactly,
That's the
dude.
thing about it too is like the worst project you could possibly procrastinate in college
my
is
God,
a coding
coding.
project.
Oh my God.
Because those things eat more time than you would ever.
There's no way to
want.
speed them up.
Exactly.
You can't be like, oh, I'll go really fast on this one.
Exactly.
It's like, it's
Yeah.
dictating how fast
Well,
you
the
will
thing is,
go.
it's like, you can't
it's
just
fine,
also
it's
like
quick.
eat an Adderall and just crank out a paper like you can with a coding
No,
project. You
not
know,
at
like
all.
you can just like words can spew out and like you can get it done and turn it in with a coding project.
There's
it's,
no bullshitting.
there's no gray area there.
Yeah.
You know, like it's
No.
either it's correct or it's not.
But that's the beautiful thing about it too, is it's like, that's logic. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly,
you have
yeah.
to impart perfect logic on this thing for it to work.
But
how
then
you want it
also
to.
on the flip side of that though, when you finally get it to work, it might be the most sad.
Oh,
like,
Dude,
Dude,
like the
you
elation, the
You're
elation
just
of
sitting there and
having
you're
your,
like, wow, dude, I'm Steve Jobs.
Exactly.
Like, this
You're
is
like,
it.
move over,
you go to your
Apple.
terminal, you hit the run button, you're like, holy shit, voila,
It
it
did it.
worked.
Yeah, this is working.
Exactly. Like, and it's funny, like, even so, like today, for example, like I got done with my work today.
Tell them about this. This is cool.
So like my work day ends at like 1 or 2.
He's working East Coast hour, guys. He's not a chump.
No, I get my shit done. But so my roommate's working for like a talent agency right now, and he's just scouring through TikToks trying to just like learn about a lot of these people, and he just like wants to know like all of like their average likes. But like these TikTokers have like 300 posts, so like.
Yeah.
It takes a lot just to like go post, okay, like write in Excel, but
Yeah.
you can go through step by step.
It
so,
can be automated.
so I was like, let me help you out with that. So just like you find an API to like get the TikTok, and then you can just like
An applied program interface.
essentially
People
just like
wanna know.
lets you access their data. So I literally spent my entire afternoon just pulling their data and then just formatting it perfectly so every single post had the likes and like the average. And like after that, I was like, this is why I love coding.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
it's-
actually.
Well, dude, ultimately
so
you
that's
can
the
just
thing.
do like repetitive things like instantaneously.
well, like I mean, that's
I
what,
feel like you love coding more than I do because, like, I was like, oh, this is cool. Don't want to do it for a living.
yeah.
I was
I
just
mean-
like, immediately, I was like, this is really cool. I'm so grateful for it. But, like, I haven't coded since those classes, to be honest.
What I
like,
first-
I stopped
like
there.
what I first loved about it was like coming from like because I love basketball and I love just like the intricacies and like what
Mhm.
makes like different rosters work or like what like just advanced analytics of basketball is then like
Mhm.
for one of our coding projects it lets you kind of just take whatever data set you want and then make something of it.
Mhm.
So I was like, cool, like let me take the social media account for like the Pistons because I'm a Detroit guy. Let me see.
We'll get back to that.
Like let me see how like for example like the Lakers are coming in town, Bron's coming in town.
Mm-hmm.
How much more are they advertising that game than they would normally? And then I
That's
would just
dope.
like, I would just like, you know, merge that with how many fans actually show up to the game. So you could actually see like an accurate, you know, representation of does their advertising work essentially. And like, I just thought that was like the coolest thing ever to like breed something that has no application to school. Just like
Mhm.
my fan of basketball with something that just
Absolutely.
like with numbers.
That's really cool.
And like once I got to that point, I was like, you can literally use this shit for
Yeah.
anything. You know,
Like,
like,
actually,
it's-
One of the
Yeah,
coolest
it's
things,
incredible.
one of our friends, well, we have to circle back to the original question I asked, but our one friend, Jack Van, also,
Oh, yeah.
shout out to Jack.
JVD.
He did something hilarious, right? When he honestly took it to the max most of the times, where he, you know, coded a betting app for us to, and basically he got on the GroupMe API, and he just thought it'd be funny to find out who from our pledge class gets the most likes for every GroupMe
That's
message that they
so
write.
clown.
So,
No, you
he
can also
goes
see,
into
like,
our
who
GroupMe.
uses like the most words too. So it'd be like our friend Matt would be like Jewel, please.
Yeah, it was most common words per person for each user and
That's
the highest
great.
likes per user, right? And our one friend who's, you know, not the most talkative guy, but also was in our major. Shout out to
Shout out
Sonnen. Sonnen was by far the most likes per message because he would just
Really?
drop these
Yeah.
hilarious
Yeah,
nukes.
it's always the quiet guy that's just really
Yeah.
funny.
He
It takes
never
his
wrote
one-
in the
yeah.
he never wrote in the GroupMe, but every time he did, like half the PC liked it.
Yeah.
Like his average was
Just
like
hilarious.
10, at
Yeah.
least 10, which was crazy because considering there's only 24 people
Yeah.
in the GroupMe, but just cool shit like that, you know.
That was really cool. But the neat thing about that major is it opens up that door to you if you love it.
Exactly.
You know what I
and
mean?
if not, then you
If you
also
love it, go pursue that.
Yeah.
They'll let you take elective classes in Python.
Oh.
I don't know if you guys took Python.
Yeah.
Ours were like C# and Java.
Mhm.
Or R2 as in SQL, but that's just my database
So-
stuff. But
I mean, like you and I both, you know, ironically ended up in a very, very similar job when you got yours way, way, way before mine. But you know, I also was taking these classes and realized that I was definitely the worst of the bunch. You know what I mean? Like I'm like definitely like seeking out help from Toe, from Trev. Shout out to Trev, Jack, from Will, just all of our boys that were in our major, and they really like helped me like move along in these classes. And ultimately, I just wanted to be able to jive with people that were, coding types, be able to talk the lingo.
Well, it's interesting because technology is just such a broad space where coding is such a crucial part of that, but it's not the only crucial part of that.
Yeah. Right.
It takes a lot of other roles to make that happen.
Right.
And I think that's the really great thing about information science is it really puts all of those roles in front of you and says, if you're more like
pick which one you want.
Exactly. Like if you're more of a strategy-based person, go this. If you're, it's just, I am really appreciative of that. I don't think I appreciated that when I went into it.
Mm-hmm.
I admit I'm very grateful to have fallen into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cool major. It's kind of crazy we all did it.
Absolutely, man. So how would you describe our SI squad? We had about, just for
SI
reference,
is what?
School of Info.
Okay, gotcha.
But we had about 9 dudes, all from our pledge class in the same major.
We were very lucky too, because Michigan's probably got
that was super helpful. For you guys.
I mean,
that was,
for me it was insane.
That was super helpful.
That was clutch.
Especially
having Trev right next to me.
I don't know how it happened, but Michigan's probably got 7,000 kids per class, right? Our School of Information had 150 kids in the entire school. And a lot of it's user experience where you're designing websites and doing kind of more the front end interface. So only half the kids are really doing
back end coding.
Coding where you're doing analytics and whatever. So that's probably about 75 kids. And out of those 6,800 kids, not 7,000 kids at Michigan, there were 8 kids in our pledge class who all got in,
and we all lived together.
And exactly. So not to say we were cheating the system by any means, but
oh, man.
But no, there's strength in numbers.
But
collaboration is really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it helps doing coding homework when there's a very finite, or there is a yes answer to every single question. If you do not get no, somebody out of the 8 probably got yes.
Or if you've got this one bug in your code, having someone else's set of eyes save you 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And we were very lucky to have some very talented kids who had computer science backgrounds, not just in SI, but also pursued a minor who, were TAs and could really help us through not only just okay, here's your problem, but also here's why you got to the problem, and that also helps you become a better coder. So
understand it. Yeah.
A lot of our classes were absolute dog shit. We would take pretty much fake consulting classes.
The elective classes were bullshit. We just.
But at the same time, it's whatever. I don't know. At that, especially senior year, junior year, latter end of junior, you get to the point where you realize outside of coding, any other class you're really taking isn't going to help you that much, right? If you're taking
soft skills,
exactly. Me writing a little, write up for a case about how I would, increase their sale or just help them, it's consult them in this problem. It's I've seen probably 100 of these problems since I got to school.
I feel it's less about learning a new skill as much as it's seeing what you like at that point. What do you enjoy doing?
And that's why
skill set and go pursue that.
But then you find out you don't like what your major's teaching you.
Yeah,
you're
it's also because now
I'm in deep now.
What helped us out too is because there's so many of us, all of those monotonous papers where we just had to write up real quick. We just be all right, you got the first paragraph. Let's just crank this bitch out. Let's go. Let's go out.
Yeah, we're going.
We pregame at our place and let's move on here. So I'm in hindsight, do I wish I would have learned more in college? Absolutely, but at the same time, because I like to go out and have a very social experience in college, I'm very grateful that our major allowed us to pursue both avenues pretty easily. Our major was pretty easy by and large, especially if you're a bright enough kid where you can kind of bullshit your way, which I feel college is by and large. But at the same time,
also it's college matters for 4 years, maybe a little bit for 5. But when you've been working a job for 3 years, I imagine they're going to care about your previous employer's opinion of you a lot more.
That's that.
Dude, well, the thing is, everybody is, right when they start a job, what do? They train, dude. So it's pretty much, and
you're starting over again.
There's very few jobs where, what you learn in college directly applies to what you're doing in your job. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I heard, my uncle used to tell me this. He's outside of your first job, no one gives a fuck where you went to school. And, I think, that speaks a lot to, Michigan's a great school, but at a certain point, Michigan's not your identity anymore. It's your work. So it's if you're shitty about your work and you're not really giving a fuck, or
have no pride in it. Yeah.
Exactly. Then you're not going to get a good job. I don't care what your education is. Clearly, they didn't teach you that well, and that's on you. That's not on their education. You know. So it's
you can't put that into a person. You can't instill it. That's just value. It's do you really care about getting the job done at the end of the day?
Right. Yeah. So. moving on. In college, Toe was one of the few people I know who actually went abroad twice.
No way, did you really?
Yeah, so he did a summer at London and at LSE, and
there we go. That was a guess.
and then also, of course, went to Sydney as well. So I was wondering if you could.
Wait, sorry. London, then Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
What semesters?
So I went to London summer after my sophomore year, and then went to Sydney second semester junior year.
Okay.
Yeah. So we want to hear some highlights from both experiences. Number one,
For sure.
and please, talk about World Cup as well.
Yeah.
And then the latter half of the question is, if you could combine both experiences to one mega semester abroad, which aspects of each city would you want to bring into one, super semester?
Yeah.
That's a dope question.
That is a good question. So
Because they're very different, right?
they absolutely, yeah, I mean they absolutely are. So for me, after sophomore year, I really I had an internship, but wasn't crazy about it, and I heard about LSE, London School of Economics, and heard if you have decent enough GPA, you're gonna get in. So I applied to it, I got in, and ended up going to London for about a month and a half, and I as a college student going to London amongst other college students in the summer,
going to Europe before you're 21, so you can legally drink over there. That's a very key distinction of the experience.
As a kid who got kicked out of more bars than he probably got
You're
into
so-
after college.
Oh my god, I can't believe you
Was
brought
that your
this up.
bet?
Toe
It was
literally would get kicked out of the easiest bar to get
Why?
into in Michigan.
I feel like you don't look
Shout out-
like super
shout
Shout out
young.
Garage Bar, Toe,
I
and
have
Garage
one
Bar.
of my proudest moments of college is I got kicked out of the same bar 4 times in one night. That was a big one for me.
You just kept sneaking back
I
in.
just kept because I used my friend's brother's ID and he had glasses. I don't have glasses, so
Dude,
but
that's so funny
I
that,
look
that
decent.
ever works.
Yeah, I know. Well, the thing is, the bouncers clearly have no idea. They know it's not you.
Yeah.
Dude,
And so,
anybody using a fake ID, let me just tell you, the bouncer
They know,
is
they know.
willingly letting you in underage.
Oh,
You're not,
But
you're
you're
not
going to a
scheming.
college bar.
You're
so it's
5'10". It says you're 6'3" and have blue eyes.
It's
They know
anybody
it's
who
not
thinks
you.
they're scheming by getting in with a fake, it's extremely obvious
Yeah.
that your ID is fake.
So anyway, London was a very it kind of just let my wings kind of sprout a little bit.
Yeah.
I could finally glow up a little bit. So when I first got to London, there's a funny story actually. So one of our good friends speaks fluent Russian. He was studying abroad in St. Petersburg, Russia.
Whoa.
Which is another crazy,
Whoa, that's
yeah,
cool.
which was unreal. And he was so this was also the same year that the World Cup was in Russia. And I cared about soccer, but not enough to follow it. And he was like, Tove, if you want to come to the World Cup, if you buy your flight here, I'll get you a ticket. I was like, all right, say less. Let's go.
Yeah, and flights are mad cheap.
Yeah, so
Yo,
it's
this is a theme for you. You got the outside land plug, you got the World Cup.
Exactly.
plug.
I got friends in high places. But he's a spy for the KGB. But anyway, so
Yes.
so anyway, so I booked my flight. This is actually a funny story. So I booked my flight to Russia. This is the second day that I'm there. So I fly to Russia.
This is the second day you're in London?
Second day I'm in London. I'm like, fuck it, let's go to the World Cup. So and
You're going to Russia now.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he ditches his twin. Sorry, Ben.
Sorry,
Shout out to
Ben.
Ben.
But anyway, so I go to Russia and I had an 11 p.m. flight out of London, get to Moscow at 4 a.m. Then have a Moscow to St. Petersburg flight, get to Russia at 6 a.m. I'm tired, just want to go to sleep.
How long is that whole flight? Just curious.
I mean,
I
it's
know time zones are changing and stuff.
It's probably 3 or 4 hours.
It's not very far.
That's not
It's
that
not very
bad.
far. It's no more than 3 hours. So anyway, I get to St. Petersburg, and Russia is just at this point in my mind just such an obscure place. So I'm dude,
Totally, dude.
how do I get to your house? It's
how am I here?
exactly. So he's just take an Uber, just make sure the license plate matches up. You should be good. All right, word. It's 6
Just trying
a.m.
to make sure that happens.
Yeah, exactly.
He also lives an hour from the airport.
He lived probably 45 minutes away. So I
How
called
many
him.
rubles was that? It's a bunch of rubles.
Well, it's actually,
Just wait.
it's funny. So I get in the Uber, right, and this guy clearly speaks. There's zero connection between the English language and the Russian language. He knows it, I know it. So he starts taking me around, and so we leave the airport. We're driving around for 20 minutes, and I'm kind of nodding off in the back, half paying attention, half just get me to Ted's place, or just get me, to his buddy's or my buddy's place. And all of a sudden, I recognize the same billboard, the same building. So
You're
I'm
this guy's driving.
he's driving around in circles. So lo and behold, I check my phone. This guy's literally just taking right? He'll go like a mile.
Dude.
And I'm like,
hey,
okay, I gotta say something. So I'm like, and of course, as stupid as I am, I'm like trying to like direct him, like, yo, take a left, like going to the
trying
Uber
to not
driver.
be like confrontational.
Yeah,
with this
exactly.
dude.
With this scary, Russian Uber driver, and he's just like laughing at me, whatever. So I'm like, another 20 minutes goes by. We're in like the same place. I'm like, all right, I'm kind of like, something's going on here.
Yeah.
So I'm like, can you please, like, I'm just trying to like,
I have a map. I know where I'm going. You're not following it.
exactly, like something, like, go the right spot. But so he ends up going back to the airport. So I'm like, okay, this guy's like, he's probably just gonna drop me off, right? Ends up tailing off into this deserted parking lot, dead end. Trees are lining the whole road.
Nah.
And I'm like, I'm freaking out in the back. I'm literally texting my mom, like, sending my goodbye wishes, like, okay, Mom, sorry, Russia's awesome, but, like, I don't know what's going to happen right now. Like, I'm shitting my pants.
Yeah.
And so
That's mad scary.
You're about to get capped in Russia.
Exactly. I'm like,
You're
wow.
just, like, clawing at the door.
I'm like, 20 years old, if there's any way to go out, at least I get clipped in Russia. That's fine. But, so I text my buddy, I'm like, dude, like, I don't know what's going on. Can you please, like, can you send me something to tell this guy? And so he sends me a text message, which ended up being like the neighborhood that he lived in. I show it to him. I have no idea that meant anything. So he looks at me. Again, it's like 7 a.m. Gives me a thumbs up, turns the car around, immediately starts blasting house music on full volume, and just skirts into the other direction.
He just went from killing you to homie mode.
Exactly.
He's like,
oh, I got you. No, he's literally like fist bumping on the way there. So I'm like, I mean, part of me is like, thank God I'm not dead. The other part of me is like,
let's go.
Let's turn this up. 7 a.m. Like,
this is surreal. What's
so,
going on?
so anyway, like, I guess the house music like led him in the right direction. Finally, we're probably like 30 minutes away, which is not. It's a step up from where I was.
Yeah.
So we get to this bridge, and like, so it's like your normal bridge. You have like the fast pass line and the cash line. So he goes in the fast pass line first, and I figure like, okay, he's an Uber. He'll just have like swipe through, and we'll be fine. We're like 3 cars back. He like turns around, and then just starts booking it in reverse, like against the oncoming traffic. Cars are honking at us. Like, have no idea how he didn't get it. Swerves into the cash line. I'm like, first of all, thank God I'm like still alive.
You're like, what is this dude's deal? That is insane.
Yeah, so then we get to the window and he looks back at me. And granted, so this is like a 50-year-old Russian dude, pretty thick guy. Looks back at me with a straight face and just goes like,
give me money to get in here.
Like, yes. I'm like, no. I'm like, no money. Like, no money. No
rubles here.
I
I
don't have Russian money.
No money. And like, so I probably have like $200 just like US just so, like, so I could, trade in at some point. I'm like, dude, I have no money. And like, this goes on for like 30 seconds. His stare just like does not change. He's just like,
oh shit.
I'm like, okay, this guy's not fucking around. So I'm like, whatever. So I give him like,
dude, you were just getting worse.
Exactly. Again, this is like
hour
7, and like, I'm like, fuck this country, dude. No wonder people hate it. So like, I give him. I know. So I'm like, just dying. I give him $20. So I give him 20, and he like puts it on the dash. Doesn't even pay him. I'm like, what the fuck? Pulls out a stack of Russian rubles from his pocket, like this thick. Pays the person. So I'm like, oh hell no, like, this guy's not getting away with this.
Yeah.
So I'm like, he's driving away. I'm like, give me my money. Like, didn't even have to do like, give me my money. He's got no idea what I'm saying. He's know I'm pissed off.
Right.
I'm like, give me my money. He's just laughing at me.
The Uber driver?
Yeah, and like, so what I didn't realize is like,
He knew what you were saying.
exactly. No, he absolutely did. Like, he knows what he did. But like, what I didn't realize is $20 American in Russia is like $100.
So
like,
rubles are so
dude, like
devalued.
when I finally got there, like when we went out to lunch. Me and my buddy got like a couple beers, had like an appetizer and like a nice meal, and
like
it was like it
$4.
was literally $5.
Yeah.
And so this guy's big balling, so I can see why he's fist pumping the whole time.
Yeah.
So anyway, the drive keeps going on. I'm like, probably like we're on an hour and a half right now. I was supposed to be there 45 minutes ago. We're like 10 minutes away. So I'm like, thank God, just get me there. We pull up to a red light, and he pulls out like a mini cologne bottle with like kind of like blue and like brownish salt, and he looks back at me. And he's like. I'm like, I kind of like shake my head, like I don't know what this is going.
Yeah.
Like, okay, sure. So he pulls out. It looks like a cross between like bath salts and meth.
No.
He like offers it to me. I'm like, no.
No.
I'm good.
Your world.
I won't smoke your freaking crocodile face,
Yeah,
dude.
no,
Like,
exactly. So he kind of like shrugs his shoulders and just houses this entire bottle. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what he just took, but it can't be good. So all of a sudden, we're at this red light, right? And he's just like. You know when you're like super fucked up and like you can't really like hold your head up, so you kind of get like the human bobblehead a little bit. He starts like doing this. He like spat out the window and he's just like,
oh god,
and he's just driving like this. I'm like, please God, like get
how
me
close are
out.
you to your destination?
We're like 10-15 minutes away. I'm
Oh,
like,
that's
please,
too far to bail.
get me out of
Yeah.
here. So he's driving like 2 miles. We're probably like 10 minutes away. We need like one more left turn to get to like the side streets where like I can actually like kind of
walk
a little bit. So we have one more turn to make. We're going like 50 miles an hour on this road. Just zooms by the left turn. So I'm like, dude, it was left. I'm like, go back. He's like, whatever. So we're going 50 miles an hour. Goes in reverse against the incoming traffic. I have no idea how we did not
DUIs not exist in Russia?
I have no idea. No, that's the thing about Russia is like no one gives a fuck there. There's no police. Like everybody just runs on their own agenda.
There's no police?
Like pretty much no. Like
what?
It's like, dude, Russia is a fake country. It's insane. It is insane. But anyway, so he goes back in reverse. Finally makes the left-hand turn. And then I'm just like, I just like hit the backseat, like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah,
thank
you. This is my destination.
I like sprint to my buddy's place. I finally get there, and he's just like, hey, Toe. I give him like this giant.
Yeah, like, you don't know how bad things
just
like,
dude,
I thought I was gonna die an hour ago.
You have no idea. But like the funniest thing about that was once I got to his place, I had probably the greatest day of my entire life.
Really?
Like Russia's
just had to pay the toll.
Just had to pay, and it was a very hefty toll. But
yeah.
Did that surprise your buddy who was like living there?
Well, it's like,
or is he just like,
no? He's like, it happens. He's like.
Yo.
These Russian drivers, like, if they recognize you can't speak Russian, they'll just try to like get you money. Like they're gonna cruise around because
I feel like that makes sense. But the whole like, okay, well,
doing
any alcohol drug thing, like while driving is nuts. Like,
but like, I mean, so I went to the World Cup after that, which was like I've been to a lot of cool. Like I went to the Rose Bowl, been to a national championship, like been to some cool sporting events in the World Cup. Not even close as the coolest one I've ever been to.
I mean, you went to the semifinal too, so
yeah,
that
helps. I mean, it was like France and Belgium, two of the best teams in the world. Super
sick.
Cool.
Yeah.
But like, what's also great is like we get to the concessions, right? And like any big sporting event, it's going to be like $10-15 a beer. We get there, we're in Russia, it's like $2 a beer. Plus, you can get like 8 of them. So they literally would give you like, because also it's just like Russians and English people who just love to drink, so they would literally just give you like kind of 8 cup holders. So me and my buddy are just rolling in there like firemen carrying like 8 beers to our seats.
So fun, dude.
We're gonna have a day. But yeah,
that's the single best abroad story I've heard.
I kind of digress on the original question, but like I just had to bring up that story.
That story is well worth it.
That needed to be told. Had you ever heard that?
Yeah, I mean
that was crazy.
But like,
you had me on the edge of my seat.
Dude, I mean, it was like like no bullshit. Actually, thought I was gonna die, maybe twice,
maybe a couple times.
Like, and
that's snarly.
But like. So, back to the original point, like, so I did that cool experience and then went to London, which was super cool because it was like summertime, so people were like out and about.
Beautiful.
There's some great clubs. Like, there's some cool, like, there's a lot of history in like in London, which I got to explore. Whereas Sydney.
What clubs did you go to?
So we went to like, fuck, I forget what they're called, but there's one like Scandal where like the weekends like DJ played a couple times. We had like. Got bottle service because we were there with like some people. So like, I mean, we went out like every day. It was pretty disgusting. But and then Sydney is like probably similar to like y'all's abroad experience. But Sydney was like, it kind of reminds me a lot of LA, where it's like it has a very good merge between the beach scene and then also kind of more like buttoned up, bougie, but also like it's not like too overload. Where like they merge well. So it's like. Like, and I also lived with an Australian dude, which also helped. So he kind of like showed me like the lay of the land a little bit. But like to combine both of them, like I love the beach. Like I honestly like, I think Sydney is one of the coolest. Like I would take my semester
so high
over.
on my list of places I want to go.
I would take every single day I was in Sydney over London. No disrespect. Really? Like I loved London, but like I can't even merge them because Sydney was that much fun.
Wow, that's really cool.
And, like we also had like a big cohort of Michigan kids, which like. There's always someone to pregame with or go out with, so it wasn't like you're just going out and like you're by yourself. But it was
meeting
also
new kids from Michigan.
Sydney's a big enough city where it's like if you want to meet new people or like other college kids, other Australians, and I had the plug with my Australian roommate that he would just tell me like, okay, go to this bar on this day. So
did you meet a lot of other Australian people, or
I met like
was it still mainly your
US
crowd?
Yeah, it was more the US crowd just because we were surrounded by so many of them, and like all the bars we wanted to go to, everybody knew those were kind of like the US bars, and so those would inherently be more fun. But also like. My roommate would have like a bunch of people over. Sometimes I would go hang out with them. So like I personally got like a very good mix of kind of the native Sydney life and saw how it was from his shoes, and then also just like the touristy view where I want to explore, go to the beach, and go to like the touristy bars, do whatever. And then we also like got to go to Southeast Asia, which was cool in its own right.
That's interesting because obviously you go to Europe. The set of traveling you're doing is all throughout Europe. You know? But when you go to Australia, it's like you're going to Indonesia.
Yeah, well, it's
Bali,
like it's also like you go to Australia and like. Yeah, you want to go to like Japan or Thailand, for example, but like Australia's it's still like an 8-hour flight to get to Thailand from Australia.
Dude, Oceania's in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly.
Man. Like,
so I mean, it's not like you're right next door to Thailand. It's just like a quick flight, like it was for Europe. And I think that's what makes
no flight were longer than 2 hours.
Exactly. And like I think that's what makes
or like €30.
The Europe experience very unique versus the Australian one. Is like the travel is very much a part of your experience.
You can do it in a weekend.
Exactly. But whereas for us, it was like Sydney was our home base. Like we didn't really. Yeah, we had like probably a month trip, but we knocked that out in a month, and then after that we were in Sydney.
What are some cool trips you did while you were in Sydney?
So we got to do like if you go a little bit. So my aunt actually lives in Melbourne.
Cool.
So like I've been to Australia before. So
is it Melbourne?
Yeah,
that's how they
They
call
don't
it.
say they are.
I always call it Melbourne.
Yeah.
Now I know. I won't be a
Exactly.
I
Don't be a U.S. tourist.
I got you, Melbourne.
But like so you can go to like I went to the Great Barrier Reef. Got to like
Dude, I
snorkel with
want to
like
do that so bad.
awesome.
It looks so sick.
And then if you go a little bit north of Sydney, you can there's a bunch of like sand dunes, so we ATV'd like right on the ocean on some sand dunes. Which
That's
is
so
cool.
sick.
Tasmania and New Zealand are actually super close.
Did you go to New Zealand?
Did not, unfortunately. I'm so pissed off.
Yeah.
My parents would visit me, so I couldn't go.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like New Zealand's kind of the most expensive trip you would take. So like,
really,
whenever your parents would come, like that's what most people did.
it's not that close, is it?
It's like a 2-hour flight.
Oh, that's not.
So it's not bad.
That's not that bad at all.
But there's also like Tasmania's like an hour flight south, which
What's Tasmania like?
Tasmania is super cool.
Really?
Yeah, it's almost like the more off-brand New Zealand where
Bless you.
Thank you.
you have like the mountains and stuff, but like there's wineries you can go and explore.
Whoa, no way.
Like they have the beaches, so it was like it's very cool from a nature perspective if you want to do that, but then also just like relaxing. You can, go to these wineries, or also just they've awesome like farmers markets that we would go to, and you could just see like. It's a very small island, so the natives were just like, they loved entertaining people and just like seeing where people were coming from, so they're extremely welcoming, and just like, I loved it.
How does that native population compare to like your Aboriginal, Australian native?
So they're more down to earth, where they like accept kind of
Tourism?
the tourism,
Or
whereas
like a Hawaiian native?
that's more like the Aboriginals.
Okay.
So like they're more so just like, if you're not in our culture, like we want you to accept us, obviously. If you don't like mess with us, just leave us alone.
Yeah.
Whereas like the New Zealanders, or like people from Tasmania, like they love kind of showing their land to other people.
Cool.
And they're like, we're much more kind of open arms about just like letting us explore and like doing whatever, and like could kind of be more of, I don't know, I mean, it was definitely like you felt less of a tourist than you would.
Yeah.
Like
less of an imposition.
Exactly. Which was like very nice, because when you're visiting these countries, you obviously know what you are. Like you're a tourist just trying to see the cool spots. Like, but
and you don't want to use them for that.
Exactly. But
I mean?
then they also like they want you to experience it how they do.
Yeah.
So I think like Tasmania, for example, like does a very good job of mixing the two.
That's a special thing for sure.
Dope, man. So we're gonna make a transition back towards your original Detroit days. And I'm gonna ask you to put your GM hat, and for non-sport people, that's general manager. And so the thing with Detroit, man, is they have such passionate fans, but all their teams suck.
They're cursed.
They suck, man. And I don't know why. Like the Ford family owns the Lions, right? And then there's another family called the Illiches that own the
Tigers
Pistons
and the Red Wings.
the Red Wings and the Tigers, and then the Pistons are owned by another family. But your main two teams, right, are the Lions and the Pistons. You're a big basketball guy, big football guy. If you were the GM of either of those two teams, and you had you could make 3 moves to fix those teams, what would you do?
So like the biggest problem with Detroit sports, especially the Lions and the Pistons, is they do such a horrible job of tanking, that they're in this like perpetual losing streak of, we don't have enough talent, but we have enough to stay semi-competitive, but not enough to like move the needle. So like that's what's made the rebuilding job so hard, is like they want the fans to have something to cheer for. So they'll go in, like for the Pistons, for example, they bring in Blake Griffin, great guy. Blake Griffin, like, not that the Pistons are going to be a championship team every time soon, but like, they want to make the playoffs, and they did last year with him. But it's also, he's on the downside of his career.
Totally.
And it's not like Detroit's an attractive free agent spot. So like, if I were the Pistons right now, I would try to flip Blake Griffin, and I try to just get like, I would get like a good point guard, because especially like how the league works right now is like, even though like LeBron and AD aren't point guards,
It's a shooter's league.
It's a it's not even a shooter's league. It's like, it's a creator league. It's like like that's why the Nuggets almost beat, like that's why they beat the Clippers, right? It was
Mhm.
like Jamal Murray ran the show, but like Jokic, like he creates so well for other people that the offense can go through him, but it's not like it has to go through him to get buckets.
Mhm.
Whereas like the Clippers, like you get guys like Paul George, Kawhi, like no disrespect to them, they're obviously great players, but like they're not going to go out and get you 10 assists a game. And like when you're in the playoffs, you need guys who are going to create easy buckets for other people, and that's what guys like Murray, Jokic do so well. It's guys like Bron, AD so well. Jimmy Bucket's the same way. Is like those guys don't need to score 30 points for the teams to win.
Mhm.
And like that's what the Pistons' biggest issue right now is like they bring in like Blake Griffin, great player. He's not creating for anybody. So like they just like I don't know who on earth would want to come to Detroit, but I think Blake Griffin still has some good basketball in him where you could flip him and just like
for more, and he's probably
exactly and just like get a solid point guard who's going to be there for a little bit. Because like that's where the league's
going.
Who
would you target? Just curious.
I mean, I would try to like we have an early draft. If LaMelo Ball somehow drops to the Pistons, I would take him in a heartbeat. That would be my number. So my number one. Sorry to answer your question. Number one is draft a point guard, then draft. I don't care who it is, just draft a point guard. Number two, I would trade Blake Griffin for either like a shooting guard, small forward. I would try to go for like a guy like Jerry Grant, who's on the Nuggets, can defend, can shoot the three. As far as a point guard, like
what draft pick do they have this
they
year?
have like the 7th, which like again, it's like
LaMelo's not going to.
They were the third worst team in the NBA, and they get the 7th pick. Like that's why Detroit sucks
tough.
at like tanking.
Yeah. That's just unlucky.
Also, the NBA made it kind of impossible to tank.
Exactly.
Now,
well, like and they got screwed with
the
it.
Lottery.
But like so. Not to give 3 reasons, but I think that's the direction the Pistons should go to.
All right, what about the Lions?
As far as the Lions, number one, fire Matt Patricia, get him out of there.
I was going to say,
like,
the end all be all has to get rid of Matt Patricia.
Dude, it's like,
I don't get it.
The funniest thing is like...
He looks like a slob, dude.
He does. He's not a guy, like, if me as a fan cannot get behind this guy,
yes.
How am I a player who's making millions of dollars? How are you going to motivate me?
Or how did you motivate someone to hire you?
Exactly.
Like, how did you...
It's because Belichick. Belichick's got such a big dick that anybody who's been just, like, milking his balls can get a job. So, like, that's why Patricia got a job. And Patricia, like, he was the D coordinator of the Patriots when they went to the Super Bowl against the Eagles. They won the Super Bowl against the Seahawks. So Patricia was supposed to be the guy. If you're a guy you hire as a defensive coordinator does not have a good defense, there's no reason to keep him around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And for the past years, he has traded away the best corners on the Lions, the best defensive tackles for draft picks. But the thing is like, what I never understand about the NFL is, like, they put way too much, like, with the NFL, it's much harder to project starters or stars than in the NBA, in my opinion.
Totally.
So, like,
many dudes.
Like, a second like, round draft pick, yeah, if you have an elite scouting organization, he might be a starter.
Dude, most of the stars were later round.
I don't care if you're eating contracts to pay a guy who is a bona fide, not even like a star, but a bona fide starter. Somebody who actually, like, has carved out a role for himself in the league. And what they have done is almost...
You're trading him to another team because someone sees that value in him.
Exactly. Right? And so you're trying to just put all your eggs in this third, fourth round draft pick who God knows if he's going to work out. So he's been horrible.
Even if he's good, he's sitting on the, doing a third string kind of deal for 3 years. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to see that sort of value for a while.
That's also why it's tough to, like, for GMs in the NFL is, like, it's not like you can go out and just get, like, like the Browns, perfect example. They think they can get OBJ and Jarvis Landry, and their offense is going to just erupt. What it's funny is their offense has erupted, but it's been in the run game,
right.
So
because of their draft pick.
Exactly. So it's not like I think Patricia's the clear number one. I also you kind of have to build in the draft in the NFL, especially if you're a smaller market team like the Lions are, because no one's going to go there.
Not a free agent destination.
Either
you're getting people on the latter like third of their career, or you're drafting.
What I've realized about football too is, like, if your defensive line is dominant, you're going to stay in a lot of football games. Mm-hmm. The Bears this year are 5-1, and that's the exact reason.
The Rams offense is pretty trash, and that they keep us in there.
So I would just try to recruit, and like the Ravens just traded for this dude from the Vikings. They got Campbell, like, because they understand, like, if your offense is fine, how are you going to win games? By getting to the quarterback. So, like, defensive lines, I would do that. But at this point, like, Detroit sports they're just such a shit show that I just, like, just take a step back. And
I feel so bad though because it feels like historically some of the worst calls ever made in the NFL have all been against the Lions.
Just never catch a
True.
break.
Was
Calvin
it
Johnson
the
got killed
Lions
in the
Packers
Super Bowl.
game you went to last year?
I mean,
No,
the
we went
Chiefs
to
game.
the Chiefs
Oh,
game.
oh.
That was awesome.
That went to overtime, didn't it? Or no, it was a fourth quarter play.
So
It
It
was
was like
literally
last
like
play
Lions-
of the fourth quarter,
Lions
and
were
they
up a-
fucked it up.
Lions were up a
didn't they?
touchdown. There's probably 10 minutes left in this game. They're on the 1 yard line, about to punch it in. Like the Lions player like dives over the end zone. They think he crosses the plane, so like they stop. The ball's on the ground. Everybody stopped playing except for like this one linebacker on the Chiefs.
Scooped it.
He just scooped it and like
that's
he's.
right, dude.
it
And
got to the
we
point
watch
where,
him
like,
run the whole way,
and, like,
we're just like
Nobody
no.
on the Chiefs was even cheering because
You
they
guys
thought it
turned
was
to each
dead.
other and you're like, that's
when you-
stupid, right?
You just like hit the bar.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'll show you.
100%.
There's a very hilarious video of me filming them, the Lions fans, like right after that play was made, and they're just all like head in hand, just like, oh my god.
Like-
how did that just
And it's
happen?
since the Chiefs,
Right.
Like
You were about to beat the Chiefs. Like you're
Oh.
about to beat the Super Bowl champions. We were there. That
That's
was awesome.
true. I remember watching that. It was a great game.
It was,
I
like,
remember watching
that's the
that.
one
Will
thing
was
about
there.
it.
Like,
It was the
I
Lions
was
day.
texting
It
Will.
was the
I'm like,
Lions
dude,
day
you
the
are
whole
getting
day.
an unreal
Yeah.
run right now.
Yeah,
and
we ate some
then
good
it's
seats
just-
there too.
See,
But-
LA, you don't really feel that. You feel sometimes like you're not performing to your level of like to what you can.
Right.
Especially with the Dodgers, I feel that.
I was gonna
all
say
the
I
time.
did not mean to
But
bring
it's
that
never
up.
that level of heart.
But like,
But-
I honestly, I think that's why, like, if you meet, like, you know this, like, if you meet any Detroit sports fan, they have an unwavering passion for Detroit sports, and it's because of that exact reason. It's like
It's
they're not like
Detroit
they
versus
just-
everybody.
Bonded
It's literally a
versus
thing.
Bonded by trauma.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
No, like oh my god, just exact communal suffering. That's
Yeah,
what we call
exactly.
it.
Like
That's-
that's so true.
But like, and like that's the thing is like, all of my friends love the Lions. I've like people in Detroit love the Lions. They love the Pistons. They love the Tigers. But because there are so many glimmers of hope, and
Yeah.
time and time again, they tear your heart out.
just
But
a
because
flash in
they're
the
so
pan of
close-
gold. You know what I mean?
Oh, but like it's just like, man, it's tough. I'm not gonna.
Like they made the playoffs our freshman or sophomore year. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But they got smoked by the Packers. But you know, I didn't mean to pander, but kind of on the flip side, we've been able to experience a pretty good last couple months as LA fans, I would say. You know,
It's not over. Come
I was
on.
gonna say the Lakers won their sixth championship in our lifetime, which is awesome.
Huge.
Obviously, you know the first five are
that was
due
a
to
coronation.
our,
though.
our,
That was.
our late great Kobe, of course. LeBron obviously took the boys to the bubble and
Super
took
dope
care
it
of business.
happened during that year, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
just
nice.
it totally fulfills the story. You know, Kobe passing away in January. We've already spoken on this. Fucking brutal. Toe was with me when we figured that out. Actually, you know, we watched his Muse documentary, kind of like as things were like kind of unfolding.
Yes.
You know, as more and more news sources started to like, you know, verify the story, because you know the shit dropped on TMZ. You're like, all right, word, like it's fake.
Yeah.
You know, like at least
Please
you could
be
bank
fake.
on TMZ
Yeah.
being a you know, discreditable news source. But obviously that was, you know, true information, which sucked. But on the flip side, you know, the Dodgers are a team that Finn and I follow very, very well. And actually, you know, formulated our friendship over a couple Dodger games in high school.
Yeah, totally.
But you know, we've experienced some turmoil as Dodger fans over the years.
It's just a.
we always
It's
seem,
a constant fucking tease.
we always
It's
seem
just
like we always seem like
It's
right
in the
there.
bag,
We're
you
right
know?
there, right? And the Dodgers haven't won since 1988. For people
But
who
you've
don't
never
know
seen
that.
a team go to win a more NLDSs, have more playoff berths,
Yeah.
you know,
Or-
be a World Series
Or
caliber
just
team
to
and
watch
just
like
show.
the absolute like idol of my lifetime, Clayton Kershaw, just buckle in
It's a tough
in
idol.
the-
You can
in
do
the
better
most-
than that.
in
You
the
can do
most-
better than that, man.
Dude, I was a pitcher growing up. He was my
Oh,
guy.
man.
Also, growing up, he was awesome because he was so young
He
when
was
he
that
started
man.
with the
Yeah, he's
Dodgers.
that
He was
man.
so young.
He's been on the
Actually-
Dodgers our whole life, pretty
So
much.
my dad and I are Dodgers addicts to the point where, as a kid, I went to like 3 games a week, dude. I was
Yeah.
like
That's how I
big on the Dodgers. I mean, I passed out at school once because I was dehydrated, and
But really, the Dodgers weren't
woke
playing.
up in a hospital. And I was like, "Did the Dodgers win?" It's first thing out of my mouth. Like I was a little psycho about this, you know.
That's funny.
I went to the Las Vegas 51s games when we went to go visit my grandma in Las Vegas because I
That's
was
funny.
the farm team and I saw Clayton Kershaw pitching it as like
No
a
shit.
19-year-old.
No way.
Dude. Yeah,
That's
a
sick.
19-year-old right out of high school. So I agree with you. That's my boy too, and it's just to watch him struggle. And that's the thing about the
Dude,
Dodgers.
and the photo of him just like with his head down is like, dude,
so
like
crushing.
you're the fucking man, and you're just like just getting bodied in the playoffs.
Yeah, the Dodgers have found more success maybe than your average Detroit sports team, but there's also this level of just like choking when you
it's
don't
just
need
the
to.
disappointment of making it that far and losing so consistently over the past.
See, that's the type
7
of
years.
disappointment I've never experienced. Is where
it sounds
you
good.
guys,
Yeah.
but it's like I almost can't understand, but like it's its own suffering in its own right because the Dodgers the past 2 years were the better team. They were for 2 years.
The
in
cheating
a row.
thing is actually takes.
I mean, we don't even want to address
like,
that. But just the fact that both teams were like verifiably cheating
Cheaters?
both times
Yeah.
is just like
cheated.
come on, bro.
Bro, it's tough.
Ripped your heart out. But Finn went to the freaking World Series a couple days ago, bro. Talk about that.
So I went to game 1. My uncle and a friend of his bought 4 tickets.
How'd you score those, dude?
Way
I
back.
want to know.
They were on StubHub. Got them way back where we sat. Comparatively to most World Series seats were super cheap. They ended up going up a bunch, but I think they just got them right when they went out. Not a lot of people knew you would be even able to attend it. Not to mention, he bought them in like the Wild Card Series.
That's
So that's kind of a risk there. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to fumble that bag, or else you've got tickets you're sitting on.
Yeah.
Either way, he did it. And during the Padres series, it was not looking good.
Nope. Dude, during the Braves series, it wasn't looking good.
During the Braves series, it
We're
was
down 3-1.
During the Braves series, it was looking really bad. Like, so there was a couple times where I'm like, oh god, this is a risky play, But they made the comeback in the Braves game. Flew to Dallas on Tuesday. Ended up leaving Wednesday morning, but really cool. Saw it in the Rangers' new ballpark, and saw just a kick-ass game. Like Dodgers totally dominated. The bats were going.
That was a fun game.
Defensively, they were great.
Yeah.
Kershaw didn't choke. Which is so
bro,
hype.
I'm just so
Kershaw didn't
happy
joke.
he
It was just
finally
like,
had a good World Series performance, bro. Like he was just getting bodied, especially for me. Like I'm such a vocal fan. I don't shit on others, but seem to accept a lot of shit when the Dodgers do bad in the playoffs from our friends specifically.
That's the name of the game.
So,
it is, yeah.
So
it is.
and it didn't help that Verlander was on the Astros. So like pretty much everybody from Detroit was just hoping that Verlander won.
Dude,
in
I've got
2017,
buddies who
and I
are
just
from
got
Houston that are still chirping me. And I'm like, you
Yeah,
guys
that's
cheated.
fucked
Yeah.
Don't bring that shit to my door. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are fucking cheaters.
Dude,
Like,
how ignorant
the
the
gall
Astros
for you
are
to-
is just like next level.
that,
bro.
like, somehow they're fighting the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium. It's like, bro, you guys cheated. You guys just sit there and be
Yeah.
ashamed.
Like Joe Kelly is a mural in LA for a reason, bro. Because that face he makes is like the epitome of how we all feel. Like, how are you complaining?
Yeah.
Like, how are you complaining that you're getting pitches thrown at you? You know,
he could work on his
fucking-
curveball, but yeah, I agree.
Cry me
I
a
know,
river.
he's gonna have to pull up big in this series. Though.
He is, dude.
We'll see, man. It's 1-1 now. So when this drops, who knows what the serial score will be? We have no clue. But
It was just dope. I mean, like, I've always dreamed of going to the World Series, and it was just a really cool thing. Weird that it wasn't in Dodger Stadium. But it was just really nice to see that, and to see a Dodger win really like put the icing on the cake. I mean, if I'd gone a day later, it wasn't the worst game, but it wasn't. Last night.
going to
didn't
game
look
2
great.
would not have been as fun. For
Last
sure.
night didn't look good. Yeah, so, it was really cool, man.
Dope, man. So I think we can wrap things up with the What's Up
Yeah.
Doc. So it's been a while. It's been about 2 months since we've dropped an episode. But we're gonna keep rocking with it. Our only segment, the What's Up Doc. So, Toe, what you got a good documentary rec for our listeners?
We did a documentary and or a movie sort of deal, or like a letterbox sort of deal.
I mean,
All-inclusive.
you're spoiling what your rec is gonna be, but that's okay.
So have you guys heard of a documentary called "Searching for Sugar Man"?
Dude,
Ooh,
okay, that's a
think I
good
maybe
one.
heard of
it, but
I know. Bert
watched
told
it.
me about it.
It's honestly like viewers at home, Vin. Well, like if you have not seen this, it is one of the coolest stories I have ever heard in my
Really?
entire life.
Set the scene, baby.
yeah, I'll dive in. So it was like essentially this guy who's like 20 years old, grew up in Detroit. He worked construction. He dropped like 2 albums, had like a great voice, and just for whatever reason, like the albums flopped. So he performed a couple shows for the albums in Detroit and like just didn't get much love. So after that, like because he always wanted to be a musician, he dropped 2 albums and it looked like his like career wasn't in music.
out.
So
Yeah.
like for the next 30 years, he just like worked in construction. Meanwhile, so these albums somehow made their way to South Africa, and so this guy, this is probably like 1980s, like when the apartheid was going on, like he became like there was the Beatles, Bob Dylan, and he was number 3 in South Africa. He was one of the hottest musicians in their eyes on the planet in South. He was a superstar.
What's his name?
His name's Rodriguez. He's got some really cool songs. He's only got 2 albums, but he's got some good songs.
No way.
And so this documentary, literally, they're searching for this guy. So these South Africans wanted to make a documentary on, because they had no idea what had happened to this guy. Like
he's an urban legend, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He's famous and he has music, but they have no idea who he is.
So in South Africa, he dropped 2 albums, and they thought he was, on the same level as the Beatles and Bob Dylan. Like, he didn't drop any albums, so they're like, okay, this guy must have died. So this one guy in South Africa made a website like dedicated to Rodriguez, and they're like, how did he die? So they're trying to find out how he dies. And so, funny enough, his daughter in Michigan discovers this website and was like,
he had no clue he was a legend.
He had no. He's working construction until he was like 60 in Detroit. Lived in the same home his entire life. Just very blue collar, simple life.
Working hard.
Yeah, and so his daughter reaches out to this guy like, hey, like, I'm his daughter. Like, why do you ask me? Like, he's alive. Like, I'm with him. Like, what's going on? And they're like, holy cow! Like, this guy's a legend. So what ends up happening is they fly out his family to come to South Africa and tour. And they come on this flight and they have no, like, this guy's been a construction worker for 30 years. They have no idea. They get to South Africa, he sells out a week straight of stadium shows. And he lives that superstar dream in South Africa.
That is
and
so
they
cool.
realize, like, and so he finally realizes, like, how, like, he could have made a giant, like, and the same thing, like, not to the same extent, but, like, they realized in Australia he was big there too.
Whoa.
And, like, so his music was, like, extremely transcendent in South Africa, and he lived his entire life without knowing. And then now I think I'm not sure if he's still alive, but it's like the past 15 years of his life, he like toured around the U.S., and he found out he had so many fans around the world. And this documentary just like shows all of that.
Dude, that's mind blowing to
It's
even
like,
imagine not knowing
it's
that
funny,
in this day and age,
it's
especially.
Funny, like the way I discovered it too, because it's like I heard some of his songs like just from my friend showing me, and so I was like going on Netflix, and like I was like, oh, this will be an interesting documentary, and like they opened with like one of the songs I knew, and I was like, holy shit, like, this is the guy. Like, this is the guy they discovered.
Right. Like, this guy made the movie.
And it's just, like, the coolest.
This guy's
like,
laying bricks and is the guy who sang the song.
Like, this guy, like, they kind of talk about, like, the past 30 years when he was nothing. And he was just like, look, I love music, but, like, I wanted to be good at whatever I did. So once I thought music wasn't it, I decided to be a construction worker. And he was just super committed. And he loved it. And then he realized he was legitimately a superstar in, like, South Africa
and never known it. That's incredible to even like think
so
about.
I would definitely, if you get a chance, searching for Sugar Man.
It's on.
I'm very sold. I'm so sold. That sounds
It's an awesome story.
What's it on?
It's on Netflix.
Hey, it's
easy
on
money.
Netflix. That's
Easy
accessible because all of our viewers have Netflix, so it's really cool.
There you go. I make it easy for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna recommend an app that I can't take credit for. Our buddy Watts is just huge on.
That's a future guest. That's the cannabis officer we're referring to.
Watts is gonna be our little, this is his tease.
Yep.
We're gonna see him soon, but basically the kid's a mad scientist.
Exactly.
Anything you think of, Watts thinks of a way to improve it. And he loves putting data sets to stuff.
Yeah. He's gonna Internet of Things like every single object.
Internet of everything. Watts.
IOE.
So basically, this is a cool app. It's called Letterboxd. Next time you find yourself in this position where you're like, I want to watch a movie, and you just don't know which one you want to watch.
Or you're like,
if
you're rewatching a movie and you're like, I want the feeling of watching a good movie for the first time again.
Because you know how it goes. You get on Netflix and you either do one of their suggested things that are in the top row, or you settle for something you've already seen before.
You spend 20 minutes just like,
I
watch Step Brothers again.
Yeah, exactly. Like, very rarely do you dig and find what you're looking for. So this is a cool app. Basically, and we've all been kind of going off on it recently.
Add us right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Add us, yeah. At FinBG, at Wilming. Make sure to add Armin. He's Dermdala.
Dermdala.
But it's cool. So you get a bunch of movies. You swipe through them. If you've seen it, you rate it. If you haven't seen it, it looks interesting, you get to put it on a watch list. So basically, it's a good place to put all of your movies. It gives a little synopsis that isn't a spoiler, and like cool reviews. And I do believe it promotes movies that you might like based on the stuff you watch. So it's pretty cool. I have been watching way too many movies this week because of it.
And rating them.
You got to be true to the data set. You gotta help others out. I watched this one movie called The Lobster. This is an anti-recommendation. Don't watch it. My recommendation is to not watch The Lobster. It was one of those art house movies where it's like, okay, so here's the premise. they live in this dystopian society where if you're not married or your marriage gets broken up or someone dies, you have to go to this hotel, and if you don't find a partner in 45 days, they turn you into an animal.
What? That's so ridiculous.
So this
That's an
dude-
interesting storyline, though. I'm
Kind of
they
an
bring it
interesting
home.
storyline, right? And they do nothing with it. They literally.
Oh.
So this guy wants to be a lobster because they live till they're 100 and just are fertile forever. And so
Right.
he just can just
What if you're like, ooh, I want to be a like, I don't even know, like jellyfish never age. You know what I mean?
Exactly, just be a tortoise like, for
just
200
wanna-
years.
Oh yeah, the tortoise. There's a tortoise who's like 1,000 years old or some shit.
This movie's such bullshit. I can't even tell
Yeah.
you, dude.
That's
It's
the
just-
worst.
I kind of want to watch it now. I
That's
don't know
the
why.
worst when
So-
they build up
and
a
it's
great
one of those-
premise and then fucking botch
So
it.
basically, he runs away from this place, and now he's with the loners in the woods.
And he's just out here
That
like
regularly go into the city, and he's not liking being a loner, so I'm like, just head back into the city. But I guess you can't arrest her or whatever. He finds this girl, Rachel Weisz, the actor, or actress, I guess. But and they really hit it off. They're both short-sighted. That's one of the other things. You have to have a similar thing in order to be with someone. Kind of stupid, right? So they're living ungoverned in the woods. And I guess the people that are they're with don't really like that, and they end up finding they're getting together, which is not allowed. So they make her blind, right? So when they're short-sighted, they're doing everything.
See, I
They're
feel like they're just trying to do too much at this
they're
point.
hooking up and everything, right? When they're short-sighted.
oh, they're hooking up too?
Yeah.
Dude.
Oh, but then when she goes blind, he's like, "Yo, can we still hook up?" And she's like, "No, we don't have the same similarity anymore." And I'm just like, dumb, dumb, dumb. You guys are
I'm lost,
literally,
honestly.
you guys are anarchists. It was so bad. It was just, and it's one of those movies that ends with no resolution at all. And for that kind of movie, that's unacceptable. Like if you've just been
Dude,
murdering
you gotta
it,
tie
and
it
it's
up
like
a little bit.
Interstellar
If
or something.
you
like,
create
go
the
for it.
bag and then fumble it in a movie, like I have no respect for you as a creative
It's one thing
person.
if it's like Interstellar, where it's like they could have done a no resolution ending. And you're like, whoa, there's so many
Right,
ways that could have
right.
gone. That was awesome. This was not that, even remotely. I literally turned to my dad on this plane ride when I'm watching, and I was like, I'm so pissed off, right? It was really bad. Yeah. So don't watch The Lobster. Download Letterboxd.
All right. So my What's Up Doc is one I've been sitting on for a really long time. I'm excited to share it. It's on Hulu, and it's called The Panama Papers. All right. This is an eye opener for everybody who watches.
It's wild.
Have you seen it yet?
Yeah, I
All
watch
right.
it on your rec.
Okay, good. So I just tell Finn my What's Up Docs all the time,
Yeah.
and he may or may not watch them, but circle it back on here. But the Panama Papers, okay? So everybody's always aware of how the income gap is widening in the world, and it's a big issue, right? So the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and it's just seems like this endless cycle that you're just it seems unfixable, and you're like, how is this possible? You're like, you think you know why it's happening, but you're like, you don't really know why it's happening, right? But this documentary explains exactly how it's happening, right? So basically these journalists that are living in different countries around the world are independent journalists, not tied to any major newspapers, but kind of go in deep and are writing exposés about important people in their country, and they all get this giant 13 million document file document leaked to them that is basically exposing exactly how the whole money siphoning ring works. And it basically all funnels through a law firm in Panama, because they have this loophole where you can create a shell company in Panama for a very small $100 fee essentially, and basically it's tax-free money. So the richest people in the world all hold their money in companies in Panama that don't get taxed, right? And don't get taxed by their home countries, obviously. So as they keep making money, they siphon money off the top as the 1%ers, and the actual income pool decreases over time. So it's just it's crazy. It's Leo Messi was caught up in a tax, up in tax evasion as well, and was
soccer players,
right.
yeah.
Was a lot of soccer players got involved in this scandal. The Prime Minister of Iceland as well.
Bunch of bankers.
What?
Bunch of bankers.
Bunch of bankers, bunch of big Wall Street people were all involved in this as well. Trump is implicated in it as well, slightly. But the documentary is super, super eye-opening, really, really interesting. I highly recommend it. It's just
This is crazy.
some of it is kind of hard to grasp, because you're how is this even allowed?
Possible?
Yeah. How is it possible that Amazon pays no federal taxes in a year, when they make, You know, when they trade, Jeff Bezos is worth 100. You know,
100 billion.
No, I was like way more than that now.
We're gonna have a Teddy Roosevelt incarnate, just antitrust fest.
I was gonna say, like, when is this all gonna come? You know, like it seems like the breaking up big tech has to happen at some point down the line.
Yeah.
But it's just like, you know what I mean?
That's
Like, what do you
they're
think?
too powerful at this point, though. Where it's
they
like,
are, man. They
We've
really
done
are.
it before, though. It'll happen. It's just eventually the American
just think,
people
like-
have to realize how screwed they're getting.
I
you
feel
know?
like it's like a two-part thing, though. Is that tech is so intertwined with the American people that they don't want it. Like,
Right.
almost like they want it to, but they don't understand the implication of it. And then also, like, big tech makes so much more money for the American economy that it's like almost in for the people who are making decisions, it's not in their best interest right now.
Mhm.
And I think it puts a lot of people in a shitty spot because they're siphoning off a lot of money from like the wage gap is increasing. That's 100%. And I'm sure like I haven't seen it, but like that's details why. But at the same time, it's not like that problem's just gonna
It's also sketchy because it's an enemy to capitalism. Because like capitalism's greatest thing, is innovation. You know what I mean? Like it empowers a lot of people if it works like perfectly. But if it's abused, it allows incumbents to just crush any new person. You know what I mean? And in the technology, where we're in the first like sliver of the tech revolution, I don't know. We're gonna see some people moving it out of it, I think, but hopefully.
Well, anyway, everybody, that was episode 9 of Loading with Will and Finn featuring Toe Bautista. Thanks so much for rolling through, bro.
Thanks for having me, fellas.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Time. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your insights.
Absolutely.
If y'all want to follow him on Insta, it's at Pinky Toe.
Yes, sir. At the Pinky
Stop.
Toe.
That's lit.
At the Pinky Toe. You'll see him around. You'll see him at Saddle Ranch. You'll see him.
You want a tequila shot at Saddle Ranch?
Hey.
Make my line. We'll make it happen. I know a guy.
Thank you guys.
Take it easy. Thank you guys.